bully stepped forward, asking if he had the guts. But Gyeongsu slammed his fist into his chin. He knocked the bully to the ground in tears, shocking everyone, because this man dressed as a police officer was actually the greatest assassin in the world, reborn to take revenge on the mafia. The bullies rushed at him, but he landed a brutal punch straight into the leader's face. The other officers just stood there watching. Then the coward pulled out a dagger, saying he wouldn't make it past today. Gyeongsu stepped forward coldly and said he didn't have blood on his hands yet, but if he acted like a coward and didn't kill him now, the man would do it himself. The leader of the bullies wet his pants in fear as Gyeongsu introduced himself as a police officer. A woman tells some police officers that there's a woman in that alley and she looks like she's in danger. The public servants, the officers, reply that they'll go check it out. As the woman walks away, he sighs, telling his partner they should just head home, calling themselves society's trash as well. His partner points out the people over there and says she thinks they need to help, but the officer asks why they should do that. Because there were a lot of thugs around, so there was nothing the two of them could do. Besides, they'll probably just mess around a bit, and it wasn't the first time this had happened, so it was just annoying. That is, until someone from the side shouts for them to let her go. The officers turn, surprised to see their colleague in the alley. The thug asks what that idiot wants. The protagonist simply replies that they should let her go. The thug laughs as he approaches, asking what if he doesn't want to, while blowing smoke in the young man's face. The protagonist strikes his chin with a palm heel strike. Even the thug's cigarette falls to the ground. He drops, screaming in pain, as everyone stares in shock. The protagonist replies that if he doesn't want to, he'll make him let the woman go. The thug gets up, calling out to the young man, and his subordinates move in to fight. However, the protagonist just punches the thug in the face, sending him flying. The officers in the car are stunned. The thug screams in pain on the ground, calling him a bastard. He then grabs something from his jacket, pulling out a knife and saying he's going to lose his life today. The protagonist scoffs at this, asking if he's really going to take his life. The thug replies that he's going to kill him right now, but the protagonist answers that he'd never do that to anyone because he doesn't have the eyes of a killer. The thug stammers, asking if he really thinks he won't kill him. The protagonist just tells him to go ahead. He points the knife at himself, telling him to come and take his life. But if he doesn't do it right, he'll be the one to lose his life, making the criminal collapse in fear. He drops the knife to the ground. "Who are you?" he asks as he backs away. The protagonist asks what he thinks. "I'm the one who catches bastards like you," he says, gripping his shoulder. Then he shows his police cap while cursing at him again. 1 week before all this, at the port of Incheon, a man opens a cargo crate, coming face to face with several people. He says everyone is already there. This is the legendary assassin, Bi Kwang. His colleague, Dan Pung, asks why he's late while cleaning his blade. He asks if he's looking down on them just because it's the last meeting. The protagonist says he wasn't even that late, but he wants to know what the mission is, as all his colleagues stare at him. Then one of them steps forward with a chain, saying that Bodhisattva told them to take care of him. The chain wraps around Bi Kwang's neck, but he pulls it off and strikes the man's neck with his elbow. The mercenary falls to the ground, and the protagonist swings the chain, asking what they're doing. Dan Pung replies that it's just their job, and the protagonist repeats the word. His colleague says it's the retirement ceremony for the legendary assassin, Bi Kwang. One of the mercenaries lunges with a knife, but the protagonist wraps the chain around his neck. He knees him in the face and turns to face another guy with an axe. He tries to hit the protagonist's shoulder, but he just gives the guy a cold stare. The protagonist strikes his neck with a kick. Then he turns to another man with a knife and dodges his attack, hitting him in the neck with the chain and pulling, ending the man's life. Dan Pung watches this coldly as Bi Kwang grabs the man's shirt. He asks if he set all this up just to try and kill him. The blonde man pulls something from his coat and says this is a damn mess. He didn't want to use firearms, he says, pulling one out. Then he replies that it's an order from Bodhisattva. If he's not in good shape anymore, he should just accept it and give up, because he knows cleaning a gun is a pain. Bi Kwang asks if these are really Bodhisattva's orders, because this was definitely his last mission, and he said he'd be free when it was over, so he wants to know why. Dan Pung replies that he can find out in hell and says goodbye as he points the gun. The protagonist lunges at him, enraged, and blood splatters everywhere. Incense smoke drifts through a temple where Bodhisattva is praying. He looks at a painting, and then his phone rings. He asks if they're finished, and Bi Kwang replies, "Yes, it's done." Bodhisattva pulls the phone away from his ear. Meanwhile, the protagonist, after killing Dan Pung, calls him a piece of shit. Bodhisattva asks if this is the legendary assassin. He mentions he's preparing the 49th day ceremony, and asks how he guessed it was his own memorial. Bi Kwang asks if he's at the temple. His boss asks where else a monk would be if not at his home, but he wonders if Bi Kwang really thinks he can reach him. With so many assassins in front of the temple, the protagonist just tells him to leave the door open because he's already there, standing in front of the place with a knife in hand. He then drops the phone, saying that if they don't clear a path, he'll clear it himself, because they need to talk about this face to face. An assassin approaches, saying that Bodhisattva is preparing a ceremony right now, and the protagonist insults him. He says he kidnaps children to turn them into weapons and wants to make money by taking others' lives. The assassin falls silent upon hearing this. He grips his weapon tightly and then swings the axe at his shoulder. The protagonist moves faster and stabs him in the abdomen with the knife. He tells him to get out of his way, thinking about how he was raised to be a weapon since childhood. That bastard had taken everything from him, his body, his life, and now even his family. The protagonist turns to another assassin and yells, thinking, but now, he even wants to take away my right to live, as someone points a gun at him. Bi Kwang says, you promised that you would give me my life back as soon as I finished the last mission, he yells. You promised! Bodhisattva confirms this and says that's why he'll now let him have a human life, because all humans lose their lives one day. That is human life. He then prepares to shoot, asking Buddha to have mercy on him. Bi Kwang only thinks that he will get his revenge. Even if it's in hell, he'll do it. Suddenly, his eyes fly open to people telling him to wake up. He finds himself face to face with several police officers. A woman asks, what the hell is this? And her colleague replies that he might have memory loss. The girl tells Kim Kyung-soo to wake up, and the protagonist asks who that is. She replies that it's him. Then her colleague shouts that here's his ID and a mirror. He was at the Ilsan police station. The protagonist repeats, so I'm Officer Kim Kyung-soo. The legendary assassin, Bi Kwang, holds the mirror asking, what the hell is this? He had lost his life and woke up as a police officer. After being betrayed by the organization, he should be busy plotting his revenge. But there he was, getting slapped in the face. A police officer insults Kim Kyung-soo. The protagonist wonders how he got into this situation, while his female colleague has her head bowed to the floor. When he woke up, Bi Kwang looked in the mirror saying, this bastard tried to kill himself. The girl confirms it, asking how he could do that to himself. Her colleague says he was lucky the rope broke and that he was unconscious for a week. Then the woman tells the idiot to listen up, because writing the names of those bastards in his suicide note was never going to solve all his problems. Kyung-soo asks what the hell she's talking about, and she replies that he wrote it. The names of his superiors who bullied him were in his note, saying he doubted their methods. Outside, Hwang Chulman asks why this year's rookies are so bad. Then he says the protagonist's parents lost their lives after committing a crime. He asks why he's trying to follow in their footsteps, and Young-chan comments that a criminal's son became a cop. If he wants to go to hell, he should do it without drawing attention, because he shouldn't have written their names in his suicide note. He then raises his hand to slap him in the face. A loud smack is heard and Cheolmin is stunned. The protagonist grabs his arm, and the superior asks if he's gone crazy, demanding to know how he dares to stop him. He then calls for Jo Gyeong-hee, and the girl responds with a shout. Cheolmin asks if this isn't an act of rebellion, and she replies that she can't see from here. Young-chan crouches down and says he'll help her up himself. He grabs her hair as Kyung-soo calls them bastards. The brother turns towards him. Kyung-soo continues, saying this place is a damn mess too. Cheolmin asks what he said, but the protagonist applies force to his arm. The man starts writhing in pain, and Young-chan asks what the hell that is. Cheolmin tells him to take his hands off, and the protagonist strikes his neck with his fingers. He falls to the floor, and his brother asks what the hell that was, his eyes wide. The protagonist prepares to kick him, striking the senior officer in the groin. He screams in pain and starts to pass out immediately after. His colleagues are stunned, and Gyeong-hee shouts that he's rebelling against his superiors. In another room, Superintendent Choi Jin-ha tells the protagonist to get the hell out. He asks where he's ever seen cops fighting among themselves and hitting their superiors. And did he think that just because he's a cop, he can't be fired easily? But he'll make sure he never wears that uniform again, and tells him to get out of his office now. As evening falls elsewhere, the protagonist takes off his hat and says, seriously, he wonders how cops can be even worse. He remembers what happened at the station and the girl yelling for Kim Kyung-soo, asking if he'd gone crazy. The protagonist replies that it was self-defense. Another colleague asks if he forgot that the father of those two was a deputy commissioner. Besides, he had one of the 5-star police classification marks, so he should go home safely because they would miss him. Back on the bench, the protagonist remarks that's why they can't catch people like him, and he was just rotting away inside that police station. Their father has that medal, which is equivalent to a general's star in the army. He thought he should have at least been reborn as a high-ranking cop, but he was still exiled from the organization. A little boy nearby asks what a cop is. Kim Kyung-soo looks at his hat, saying, "Even so." He remembers being a little boy on the ground when the monk extended a hand to him, asking if he'd like to come along. The little boy accepted, scared. As time passed, he had become Bi Kwang, a legendary assassin for the organization. The monk calls his name, and the protagonist comes face to face with the barrel of a gun. He asks Buddha for mercy and fires. Back home, the protagonist stares at the rope. He repeats the name Kim Kyung-soo and looks at the Introduction to Police Science book on his desk. He'd been abandoned by his parents and then by the organization, on top of having to face his own life. But at least they had one thing in common. He wonders if he should just leave now. In the Gyeonggi-do region, inside the Seobu Police Department, a man with 2 Taeguk medals, Superintendent General Hong Jun, looks at his tablet. The Hwaguksa Temple raid case had been dismissed. Suddenly, a voice from behind him says it's been a long time, asking if he's been well. Hong Jun turns around, asking what the hell this is, but a pen is at his neck, and the protagonist suggests they talk for a bit. Hong Jun asks who he is. The protagonist replies that he's Bi Kwang. The man is surprised and asks what this is all about. With the situation more normalized, Hong Jun says this is absurd. He's the Bi Kwang who lost his life and woke up as a cop? It's impossible to believe. The protagonist replies that he isn't asking him to believe. He's threatening him. Hong Jun sighs. Kyung-soo stands up, calling for Mr. Hong. He says he will help with the Hwaguksa raid operation, catching his attention. The protagonist stares at him coldly, and Hong Jun asks who exactly he is. Kyung-soo replies that he is Bi Kwang. Under the table, Hong grabs a radio, commenting that this isn't the place to talk about Hwaguksa, but the radio gives away his plan and makes a noise. The protagonist calls for Mr. Hong and says he'll repeat himself one more time. He wasn't asking for a favor. In the hallway, all the police officers had been taken down. The protagonist says he was threatening him. Hong is incredulous and repeats the question, wanting to know who he was. The protagonist again says that he was Bi Kwang and that 3 years ago, the two of them had made a promise. Back then, Superintendent Hong was injured on the floor. The protagonist calls his name and introduces himself. Hong Jun asks if he's from Hwaguksa, and the protagonist responds, wanting to know if he's the guy behind Buddha who causes him so much trouble. He's the first to get this close, and Buddha asked him to deliver a message. He has no interest in old men like him. He points a blade at Hong Jun's neck. The man begs the protagonist for mercy. Bi Kwang questions if he wants mercy. He calls for Mr. Hong as he takes off his mask, saying they'll make a deal. He will let the superintendent live. In return, he must promise to put that bastard in jail within 3 years and come up with something to report him. Hong Jun asks why, since he was in the same organization as Buddha. Bi Kwang wants to know if he likes monks. He says he hates them because they're bald. Back in the present, Kyung-soo says that was their promise, but he didn't keep it. He analyzes Hong's face for a moment. He says he has 2 Taeguk medals, and has been promoted a lot in these 3 years. So, besides breaking his promise, he'd been sucking up to his supervisors. In that case, he's left with no choice. He'll have to take his life, frightening Hong. He yells that he didn't break his promise on purpose. He had no choice. He asks if he really thinks he got this far just by sucking up to his superiors, explaining it's easier to get his hands on confidential information this way. And with all the information he collected, in the past, after a presentation, his superiors ask about the organized group of assassins. He was saying that the supposed head of the organization is Monk Yuhua, known as Buddha. Hong Jun confirms, showing his face on the screen. The superiors laugh, saying Superintendent General Hong must be reading too many manhwas, as the Hwaguksa Temple is a national cultural heritage site. Jun says the results of his squad's investigation clearly show this until he is interrupted. A man with 5 Taeguk medals on his shoulder says that if he's not careful, he might have to face divine retribution, which startles Hong. He continues that they should keep religion to themselves and mind their own business. Kyung-soo summarizes that he was stopped by someone above him, and Hong confirms. He hands over an envelope, telling him to look for himself. This was what his squad and he managed to collect through their blood, sweat, and tears. The protagonist reads the text, flipping through it quickly. He then comments that he understands now, but he was stopped because his investigation was shit. Still, some of it was right, so he would let him live for now. But he quickly asks why he looks so relieved. He said, "For now," making Mr. Hong apprehensive. Kyung-soo continues that, from now on, he will help him avoid losing his life to him. He gives a salute and says he looks forward to working with him. He then calls him Superior Hong, leaving him shocked. Birds chirp as dawn breaks at the Ilsan police station. Gyeong-hee and her colleague are working at a computer when a kick breaks open the door. They ask what the hell that was, and Kyung-soo greets them with a "Good morning." The girl approaches, asking if he wasn't fired. Choi Jin-ha angrily opens his office door, asking what all the commotion is about. He's surprised to see the protagonist's face and calls him by name. He approaches, saying he told him not to show his face here again and that his superiors were on medical leave, so he should hurry up and go to hell. Just then, a figure approaches from behind Kyung-soo. Choi Jin-ha is surprised and speechless when he sees who it is, calling out to his superior, the superintendent general. The other officers salute him, and Choi Jin-ha asks what brings him here. Hong-jun replies that he just stopped by to see what his Kyung-soo's workplace was like, but he wants to know what's going on here, and Choi Jin-ha questions the relationship between the two. The superintendent general replies that Officer Kim Kyung-soo is his savior, so they should take good care of him. The protagonist then leans on Hong-jun. Later, outside, he comments that life is easy when you're a high-ranking officer. Hong-jun asks if that's all he needs for now. The protagonist replies that there's one more thing, as he has a favor to ask. At nightfall, in the Hwaguksa temple, Buddha prays, striking spheres before the same painting from the beginning. He turns, sensing a presence, and asks who's there. Bi Kwang answers that he is just a poor soul, holding a great grudge who is wandering around. The monk is surprised, and the protagonist enters, saying he is called a ghost. Yuhua grabs the incense sticks and moves quickly to throw them at the man. Just as they're about to hit his mask, Bi Kwang simply dodges them. He comments that a monk shouldn't dare to damage the temples that consecrate Buddha and pulls the incense sticks from the wall. The monk asks who he is to wear such a mask, and the protagonist repeats that he is just a ghost. Then, Yuhua snaps his fingers, and his subordinates appear. He continues that he should then help him move on and reach the light. The assassins advance toward him, while the monk continues to concentrate. Bi Kwang moves swiftly against a knife and elbows the man in the neck. The man drops his weapon, which quickly falls into Bi Kwang's hands. Other assassins advance on him. A man with an axe tries to cut him down, but Bi Kwang is faster, striking him with the weapon and moving on to take the lives of the other assassins. The body falls to the floor. His opponents are shocked by this action. The monk is speechless as the protagonist glares at him angrily. He then realizes the man resembles Bi Kwang. Buddha shouts that the battle is over. The protagonist analyzes the situation for a moment and thinks that it's just as he expected. Because of the interference signals created by the orchid, the camera isn't working. Bi Kwang says it's too bad because now there are more souls who need his help to reach the light. He should start right away. Otherwise, they'll become ghosts just like him. Buddha pushes his assassins aside and tells them to retreat. He doesn't know who sent him, but it seems he's full of malice and that mask. Then he tells his child to come to him, asking to let him take a look at his face. Bi Kwang replies that it's fine. He just came to say hi. He'll find out who he is in time and should just wait patiently. He thinks that he still needs to train this body. As Buddha advances toward him, his hand approaches the mask. Suddenly, a cloud of smoke explodes. The assassins comment that it was a tear gas grenade and ask if their lord is all right. Buddha confirms he is, holding the mask in his hand. He looks at the door, staring at the man who fled. His hand clutched the mask tightly, and then he crushed it into pieces. Buddha turns to the incense and examines his table, saying that he was a ghost in that case. The next day in a park, Hong looked like he'd had a bad night's sleep. Kyung-soo comments that he aged 10 years overnight, and his friend replies that it's his fault, saying he had too much work. From cleaning up the mess of his police department invasion to the tear gas grenade he asked him to smuggle. He was working overtime to cover it all up, and Kyung-soo says he wouldn't have to if he'd caught the monk sooner. Hong-jun replies that first, they need to collect evidence, then work with the prosecutors. The protagonist asks why it's so complicated to arrest criminals. The superintendent says that someone who goes around taking lives would never understand. The protagonist replies that he didn't do that. He only took the lives of those who needed to die, and he is living proof of that. Hong-jun tells Mr. Bi Kwang to listen up. No one in the world has the right to take someone's life, even if they deserve it. All humans are judged and condemned by the laws of the society they created. Kyung-soo asks if that bastard was judged and condemned by those laws. Hong replies that even if they arrest 10 criminals, they must presume the accused is innocent until proven guilty, so they need solid evidence to arrest that scumbag. Kyung-soo complains that he's had enough. Sighing sadly, he wonders if he should just create his own squad. Hong-jun shouts that he's a rookie agent with zero experience in the field, so he can't, no matter how strong he is. Because within the police force, rank is everything. Kyung-soo asks how high he has to climb to get the authority to create his own squad. Hong replies that he must have at least one of the small Mugunghwa. The protagonist says he should get to work then, and will quickly climb the ranks to get promoted. Hong tells the crazy guy not to go around causing trouble, and to just wait patiently, promising he'll help. Then he notices the young man has already vanished, wondering where he went. At the Ilsan police station, Kyung-hee repeats his question about how to get promoted. She says he has to take a promotion exam, and her other colleague asks Kyung-soo to take care of a woman for him. Kyung-hee asks if his memory hadn't returned since he should know these things. The protagonist asks when the exam is. She replies that he needs at least 1 year of experience. A drunk woman yells that the service sucks, and the protagonist knocks her out, asking if there isn't a faster way to get promoted. Kyung-hee asks why he's trying to get a mugunghwa as fast as he can, and Kyung-soo says he just wants to move up in rank. She tells him to keep dreaming because for a rookie starting from the bottom, it'll take at least 10 years. Kyung-soo asks if that's true even with the superintendent general backing him, and the girl says she's jealous. But in reality, he can take the promotion exams to move up. The protagonist asks if there's any other way. She replies there's only one way, a special promotion. If his performance score is raised by catching thugs, he can get a special promotion. Rookies don't have experience in that area yet. They just do as they're told and handle civil complaints. In time, they'd be able to go out, but she notices the protagonist has already left. She asks where he ran off to. In another district, women were getting involved with businessmen, and street fights were breaking out. The protagonist says this is it. He's in the perfect place. He wonders why a cop would need to be good at studying. His job is to catch thugs and send them to jail. So now he's going to work hard. Holding his hat, he says it's to get that special promotion. They say that 1 in every 3 Koreans has a criminal record. Of course, the reason could be a simple contempt charge or an offense. However, 1 in 3 is a very high number. And among the crimes committed, the one B. Kwang is looking for now is nothing insignificant. He's looking for something serious that will let him advance his career. The same kind of crime he wouldn't have hesitated to commit in his past life. Seeing a man handing a card to a woman, he says he's found it. Finally, a crime on his level, related to illicit substances. In a nightclub, the DJ suddenly stops the music. People ask why the music stopped, and the man calls out to the crowd, asking why everyone is so stiff tonight. He wants to see them grinding. He can't take it anymore. A woman asks for champagne, saying that if he brings it, they'll have a lot more fun. The man flashes a grin and asks if that's what the girls want. In that case, they should open their mouths wide. Besides, the others must have sore backs and would like some pain relief patches. They should get ready, as he throws the patches into the air. Now they're going to party like there's no tomorrow. But the protagonist interrupts, saying that's impossible and stopping the party, because he'll be waking up in a jail cell instead. The DJ asks if the man is mad because he couldn't get a girl and tells him to take one of these to last all day, but the protagonist says he doesn't need it. Besides, these patches are narcotics, leaving everyone shocked. People murmur that they're illicit substances, and the DJ asks what he's talking about. He says he's spouting nonsense and wants to know who he is. The protagonist takes off his jacket as people recognize the police uniform. The DJ asks how a cop got in here and what the bouncers at the entrance were doing, but his security guard says he's not sure. Suddenly, a bottle hits his face, thrown by the protagonist. He says they can continue this little chat in a prison cell. The DJ starts running in fear and tells everyone to run with him. As he opens a door, he warns his colleagues that the police are here. They need to grab everything and leave. His butler asks what's going on. Suddenly, a man's body is thrown into the room. The protagonist kicks the butler and keeps walking. One of the guards tries to open the doorknob, but it won't budge. The DJ asks what he's waiting for and tells him to open the door now, but the man says the door is locked. Outside, all the guards are down. Kyung-soo arrives and gets their attention. He asks if they really want to play cops and robbers with him. The DJ tells him to wait and asks if he's alone. Kyung-soo asks, "What if I am?" The criminal then wonders why he was scared of a single cop when he thought they were surrounded. He then calls for his guys. Kyung-soo notices something odd as they pull a red sticker out of their pockets. Both guards stick them onto their necks. Suddenly their veins start popping and they both scream in pain. Kyung-soo feigns surprise. The DJ says he's screwed now, but the protagonist's fist smashes into one of the guards' faces. The man falls to the ground and our hero says they shouldn't be screaming like that. The guard groans in pain, and Kyung-soo adds, "That's how you scream when you're about to die." The DJ watches his men get taken down and collapses to the floor, terrified of the protagonist. He tries to call out to the officer in front of him. He says they should talk and asks if there's anything he wants, promising he can get him anything. The protagonist asks if he's serious about that. The DJ says yes, asking if it's women or money he wants, because he'll give it to him. But Kyung-soo interrupts, saying it's a special promotion, and he just wants one thing, moving his hand closer to the man's face. A phone plays a news report. Last night, at an Ilsan nightclub, all members of a gang were arrested. Concerns that South Korea is no longer a drug-free country were spreading among the public. Choi Jin-ha congratulates the protagonist on a job well done. Calling him Senior Officer Kyung-soo, the young man says he was just doing his job, but thanks him. Jin-ha asks what kind of rookie abandons his assigned post, and complains that the way he arrested them was sloppy. But the protagonist tells him to take a look at this. He places a palm leaf on the table. He mentions it was hidden in a safe at the crime scene. Jinha asks if he stole evidence from the crime scene, but the protagonist continues, saying they are Paulownia leaves. He must have understood now, as it was associated with the stickers. Elsewhere, a man with a phoenix head holds one of them. A man is tied up, forced to wear these stickers. A woman watches from a distance as the man says he was in charge of Ilsan. The boss asks what her subordinates are waiting for. She tells them to put another sticker on him. The man begs the phoenix lady, but the sticker is slapped onto his chest. He vomits blood and falls lifeless to the ground. The Phoenix says that Brother Bikwang lost his life, and the Oak Leaf brother was punished. She doesn't want to be punished for this, so she has to deal with this cop soon. Back at the station, Kyung-soo says it's November's Paulownia Phoenix, codenamed Shitnix, who is an addict. Looking at his face, the protagonist thinks that the only thing he's felt since entering someone else's body is that this body is well trained. Muscular strength, stamina, agility, flexibility, it's all well balanced. Even so, for him to be able to take down the Hwaguksa Buddhist temples and all their executives, the protagonist moves his fingers and lies down on the floor, sighing as he rests for a moment. He comments that this body isn't quite there yet and needs more time. Inside the station, his colleagues ask if Senior Officer Kyung-soo has a minute. The protagonist just asks what it is. Outside, he summarizes that they're saying they want to get promoted too. The three of them agree with charming smiles. Kyung-soo asks why they're talking to him. Ga-young-hee says it's because he has the support of the Superintendent General, but her colleague corrects her, saying it's because he was recently promoted. So they're here for him. If he needs any help, he can look for them, and they'll work like slaves. The protagonist looks at them seriously and asks why he would need their help. Kyung-hee asks if he's already forgotten how nice they were to him. The protagonist confirms, saying he has short-term memory loss. The girl says they were chosen by their superiors together and visited him in the hospital, so they were nice to him. Besides, they're colleagues. This phrase surprises the protagonist. He remembers a rainy day at the temple. Someone asks if he is Bikwang, an assassin who chooses who lives and who dies. Are you messing with me? Because a man like that was the best among them all. The two of them can't believe it. Bikwang remains silent for a few seconds, until someone calls out to Lord Buddha, telling him to give special treatment to Brother Bikwang, because this is really annoying, and he wants to know why he doesn't just die. Back in the present, he repeats the word colleagues and calls the three over. He tells them to come back when they get promoted because they aren't colleagues. They have 2 diamonds while he has 3. Kyung-hee gets angry, calls him rude, and says they should fight. Kyung-soo jokes that she's rebelling against a superior. Suddenly, a voice asks what's going on here. The 3 turn around to find Choi Jinha, who wants to know why they're slacking off. They salute him, and Jinha asks if they've finished their work. Kyung-hee explains they were just taking a break. Choi Jinha says there's nothing he can do for brats like them, calling them worse than trash. But of course, his Kyung-soo was an exception. He was the station's good luck charm and asks if he's hurting anywhere, so he shouldn't overwork himself. Ga-young-hee thinks to herself that this old man has changed completely now that he's getting promoted thanks to Kyung-soo. But anyway, she was curious about what those 2 scumbags were up to now. Elsewhere, Young Chan curses out the protagonist. Cheol-min tells his brother to calm down, because if he gets angry, his blood pressure will rise, and he knows it will hurt. But the older brother asks how he's supposed to stay calm. The Superintendent General is covering for him, and on top of that, he got a special promotion. The whole station revolves around him now. I won't believe it until I see it with my own eyes. Just then, a woman excuses herself and asks the officers if she can ask for a favor, saying she needs help finding someone. Young Chan says he's not a charity and doesn't know the way, so she should figure it out herself. But Cheol-min tells his brother to look. They both blush as the blonde girl walks towards them, saying her phone battery is dead. Young Chan says he's sorry for being rude, and Cheol-min tells him not to get too excited or he might end up back in the hospital. The girl asks for their help again. The brothers approach her and ask where she's going. She replies that she's going to the Ilsan police station. Young Chan tells her that's the station where they work, and Cheol-min adds that they could go together. The girl smiles and says that's a relief, because if they're from the Ilsan police station, they must know Officer Kim Kyung-soo. The brothers fall silent for a few seconds, but they soon say they know him, that he's their subordinate, and ask what she wants with him. The girl says he has something that belongs to her, and her father will kill her if she doesn't get it back. Cheol-min comments that he thought she was his girlfriend, and Young Chan says he would have just left. The blonde takes a cookie out of her bag and says that as a thank you, they should have some gukwa bread while they walk. In his office, Hong Jun reads the report on November's Paulownia Phoenix. According to the reports Bikwang had provided, she is in charge of Hwaguksa's finances, and she carries out assassinations, mainly through the use of narcotics, each with a different stage. They are called Buddha's tears. Something worth noting is that she's afraid of being punished by Buddha, and she is the infamous Kyung-soo was at the station, getting coffee from his colleagues, when the girl walks through the door, eating cookies. Earlier, on the street, the brothers who had eaten the same cookies had fallen into a coma. The blonde eats it like it's nothing and stands before the officers. Kyung-soo and Hong-jun call her the crazy addict from Hwaguksa. Then the blonde says she found the police officer. She stares obsessively at the protagonist. Kyung-hee asks if she lost something, some kind of item. She replies that she's missing paulownia leaves, and the officer doesn't understand. The woman continues, saying they were paulownia flowers wrapped in its leaf. Kyung-hee asks if they have anything like that, and just needs to check, but the woman says no need to check her, because Kyung-soo was the one who had them. His colleague asks what this woman is talking about, and the protagonist thinks that she hasn't changed at all. He has no idea what the hell is going through her head. Phone calls are out of the question thanks to Orchid's signal jammer. The security cameras are down too. Kyung-hee asks if he's ignoring her. The protagonist stares at the girl, thinking it all started back then. He wields a wooden sword as the girl charges towards him. She grips the sword tightly and tries to slash at the protagonist's neck. Bi-kwang coldly eyes the weapon and counters by striking her abdomen. The girl cries out in pain and drops the weapon. The protagonist points the weapon at her face. Buddha comes up from behind and asks what Bi-kwang thinks, if any of them could be useful. The protagonist looks down and then shakes his head. Buddha says that's what he thought and snaps his fingers. The assassins start to surround them. Buddha orders them to send everyone to Nirvana. Bi-kwang is surprised and asks him to wait, saying they could become good with a little training. But Buddha says empathy is an unnecessary emotion for him. The protagonist just accepts it, looking away at the children's pain. He closes his eyes as an agent calls out to Master Buddha. The girl puts the sword on the ground and says she can still fight. She says she'll train hard and be useful to him. Buddha questions if the child really wants this. Then it would be easier if she just died and sought him out in her next life after reincarnating. The girl pleads with Master Buddha and resists when she's grabbed. Bi-kwang averts his eyes as the agents force the girl's mouth open to pour in the liquid. As the day ended, Buddha told them to clean everything up since it was all settled, but the girl was still breathing, even after ingesting the liquid. Buddha is surprised by this, and so he takes her to a room and tells her to finish these plates of medicine within a month. That is, if she wanted to be useful to him. So the girl slowly built up a tolerance to drugs, and when she became an adult, Buddha gave her the mask, telling her she would be November's phoenix. She thanks Master Buddha and says she will be a useful child. Ever since then, she became a drug-addicted lunatic. She asks if Kyung-soo is going to ignore her. She wants to know where her things are, demanding he answer. Kyung-soo thinks there are too many eyes on them, so he says her crap is at his house. He asks if she wants to follow him there, thinking that once he lures her outside, he'll kill her. The girl glares coldly at the protagonist. Kyung-soo tells her to come with him, and his colleague warns him that he can't just leave over the table. But Phoenix calls him a liar, because her appa wouldn't keep drugs in his own house. His colleagues are shocked to hear this. Phoenix asks if he really thought she'd fall for his trick. She pulls patches out of her bag, and the protagonist watches as she throws them. He dodges just by moving his head. His colleagues are hit in the face by the patches. They begin to suffer from the effects, losing consciousness shortly after. Phoenix calls out for her appa, while her subordinates stick the patches on the other people in the station. She comments that he wouldn't let everyone die, and if they aren't treated soon, they'll go meet Buddha. If he tells her where her drugs are, it'll all be resolved. The protagonist lunges toward the girl at a monstrous speed, managing to tear her shirt. The girl is surprised by this. The protagonist announces that the signal jammer has been destroyed, crushing it with his fingers. Phoenix gets angry about her shirt. Kyung-soo warns that he's going to call for backup. No one is watching them now. These are the perfect conditions for a murder. He points his baton at her. Phoenix asks what he's talking about. The protagonist replies that she'll understand once he knocks some sense into her, and that they should start soon to make sure she remembers the good old days. She glares at the protagonist coldly, but then laughs, commenting that this appa is pretty tough, threatening to hit a woman. On top of that, he ripped her clothes. Maybe he's having a rough day. Kyung-soo lunges to strike her with the baton, but Phoenix manages to duck. He immediately follows up with a knee to her face. The girl stumbles back from the impact of the blows. She touches her forehead, seeing blood on her hand. Then she calls him a damn cop and asks if he wants to die. Kyung-soo replies that she's even uglier when she's angry. Phoenix says he surprised her a little, that he's not a normal cop. The protagonist tells her to stop acting so calm. She tries to figure out where he came from, if he was special forces, but the protagonist doesn't answer her questions. She peels a patch from her chest and says she couldn't care less about his previous job. Kyung-soo says that's disgusting, as the girl screams in pain. Then, she grins and says she believes he'll be on his way to finding a job in hell soon. Kyung-soo just lifts his head. The girl rushes towards him at an immense speed. The protagonist hits her on the head with his baton, asking if she thought one patch would be enough. Phoenix falls to the ground in pain. Kyung-soo asks if she still doesn't get it after taking such a beating. He says she'll need at least 10 of those if she wants to have a chance against him, as he unleashes a flurry of blows. The girl tries to resist the strikes. She makes a quick slash by moving her hand. She asks how this bastard dares. Kyung-soo comments that she'd never change. She still seems to rely on drugs and avoids training her body, but given the current situation, he'd have to thank her for that. The girl asks who he is and tells him to stop pretending he knows her. He crouches down, questioning who knows about that, and wanting to know who she thinks he is, he knocks her down with a sweep of his baton. The girl hits her back on the floor. Without giving her time to rest, the protagonist raises his baton above her, saying she should be able to recognize him now since she's getting beaten like this. Phoenix asks what the hell he's talking about. The protagonist says that even with her brain fried from all the drugs she's used, he presses the baton against her neck, saying she'll realize who he is before she dies. The girl tells him to let her go while grabbing the baton. Bi Kwang tells her to just go to hell. However, the baton retracts without the protagonist's input. The girl can breathe again, and he complains with a sigh. He's about to say something about the baton, but the girl interrupts him with a slap to the face before he can finish. Phoenix starts breathing heavily. Kyung-soo comments that it's poor quality, that they give cheap stuff like this to low-ranking cops. No wonder they fight so terribly. Suddenly, the woman lunges at Kyung-soo again. The protagonist blocks but notices something in the opening between her arms. He wonders what that different patch is on the girl's body. He's never seen a patch like it, one that turns her eye reddish. He wonders if it's a new patch until he looks down and sees his hands are covered in veins. He thinks this doesn't look good. He got like this from simple contact through their clothes, but even so, she didn't seem to be any better off than him. She asks who he is and why he has the same expression as Bi Kwang. Just then, a subordinate calls out to Lady Phoenix. He reports that Mr. Orchid has made contact and that police reinforcements are almost there. Kyung-soo tells them to get out of there, that he'll let her go for today, since they'd be seeing each other again soon. He thinks there's no way the cops can go after her. Phoenix turns around, removing the patch, and tells them to gather everyone. Her subordinate asks if she's all right, but the woman just wonders why that cop reminds her of Bi Kwang. Later, police cars and ambulances arrive. Hongjun asks if Kyung-soo lost them, but the protagonist throws the baton at his face, asking how the hell a baton retracts just from some pressure. Hongjun complains that they're not bad, they just shouldn't be used that way. The protagonist shows him his hands, unable to feel a thing. Hongjun calls for the doctors immediately, and the protagonist thinks it was an unexpected twist. He was lucky Phoenix got scared. He wonders if this happened simply from contact through his clothes or if they increased the original dosage, or maybe it's a new drug, as the doctor asks what's going on. Kyung-soo thinks she's become a walking narcotic at this point. He hoped it would be okay, but it seems things are about to get hectic. He says he has a favor to ask the superintendent general, and Hong questions what it is this time. Back at his house later, the protagonist approaches and opens the door, but Phoenix's subordinates were waiting in the darkness. A smoke grenade is thrown in, and they comment that they've got him, as it's a drug that will make him hallucinate until he passes out. Miss Phoenix said to put plenty in there so he'd have more delusions, and even die from an overdose. But the protagonist was wearing a gas mask, thinking he borrowed some equipment, not the expensive kind, though he wants the expensive stuff. He says he already knew the men would come. The scaredy cat was so afraid she didn't even show up. But whatever, he's going to test just how expensive this equipment is. The protagonist points his gun, and the men are surprised. They wonder how he got this equipment, while his colleague tells him not to be afraid because the gun must be unloaded. But the protagonist shoots him in the head, and then keeps firing at the two brothers until the clip is empty. With both of them on the floor, he approaches. Analyzing the rubber bullet wounds, he comments that this gun is really good. The police arrive at the building, and residents ask what happened while an officer tells them to go back inside. The residents had heard gunshots, or maybe it was their imagination. Hongjun says that even with rubber bullets, he went too far and wonders if they're breathing. But Kyung-soo says he gave them exactly what they deserved. They might wake up while being transported, so he should make sure someone removes the poison pills from under their tongues. Hong comments that he really is Bi Kwang. Kyung-soo asks if he was still in doubt until now, even after lending him the equipment. The superintendent says he can't blame him, since no one in their right mind would believe in reincarnation. But after seeing the drug incident with Phoenix and now this, he's almost 99% sure that he is Bi Kwang. The protagonist asks, why not 100%? Hongjun stands up and says the 1% was because if he were Bi Kwang, it makes no sense that he hadn't gone after Monk Yuhua and taken his life. Kyung-soo replies that he was the one who said solid evidence is important, and now he's saying this because a police officer can't do that. Hongjun says that's the correct thinking from a police officer's perspective, but not from Bi Kwang's. The protagonist replies that Yuhua was respected and adored by every citizen in the country, and many people consider him the reincarnation of Buddha. If that bastard lost his life, he asks how the public would see it, and just taking his life won't solve the whole problem, because the underworld is much bigger than he can imagine. Hongjun asks if he's saying there are other organizations besides Hwaguksa, and the protagonist replies that he doesn't give a damn about the others. What he wants now is the downfall of that shitty monk, in every way possible, to ensure that no one is forced to live the way he lived. Hongjun is silent for a few seconds, but says he will help. They must work together to put that bastard behind bars. Kyung-soo replies that the superintendent general had forgotten, because he's the one helping him not lose his life to him by breaking the superintendent's hand. If he doesn't want to die, he should be good and listen, while Hong says he's been doing that very well. The protagonist replies that lastly, it's not that he didn't try to take the monk's life, but he couldn't. After all, he was the one who taught him everything he knows. Yuhua grabs Phoenix's neck with his fingers, and the girl winces in pain. She begs Lord Buddha, apologizing and asking for forgiveness, while the monk glares at her coldly, filled with anger. Then he throws her to the ground with all his might, asking if using so many drugs had melted her brain, because she had her assets taken and then broke into the police station. The girl begs for forgiveness as she cries. Buddha calls out to Phoenix, saying it looks like she needs a lesson. The girl tries to crawl away, pleading with Lord Buddha, saying she was wrong and won't make the same mistake twice. Suddenly, laughter is heard from outside the room. The two comment that she looked like she was crying like a baby and had sunk to a new low. If she cries, she'll lose muscle mass, and if she loses the little she has, she'll end up disappearing from the planet. Phoenix, on the floor, calls out for the Lespedeza brothers, asking why those bastards were here, and a woman questions, "Why, you ask?" She opens her fan and asks if she doesn't think they came because Lord Buddha summoned them. Phoenix calls out for Cherry Blossom, and the brother questions if that bitch came too. The girl turns to Lord Buddha, where the monk says that everyone was here now, so the case regarding the disposal of November's Phoenix would now begin, as everyone stares at each other after hearing his words. Phoenix screams for Lord Buddha's forgiveness, saying she'll make sure to recover what she lost and that he must forgive her, but the monk replies that there's no need for that. He had already recovered it, showing the rolled up leaves in a box. The girl asks how that happened. Buddha turns towards his other subordinates, wanting the opinion of April's Black Lespedeza, July's Lespedeza, and March's Cherry Blossom. July says they should take the druggie's life, and April continues that getting stronger by using narcotics was the most perverse thing she could think of. March turns to Phoenix, saying that over the years she grew quite close to her, but she can tell that the world of professionals is cruel. The monk tries to say that most people have already voted, while Phoenix calls for Buddha, saying he's so cruel as she cries in fear, because he was determined to take her life from the very beginning, and July comments that she's whining again. Phoenix continues that he brought that bitch and these bastards who hold a grudge against her, and March says she's hurt. Buddha remains silent as the girl runs towards him. Phoenix notices March offering a gun to Buddha. The monk takes the pistol, saying he has no need for someone who won't be of any help to him. The girl cries, and he says for the merciful Buddha to save her soul. As he was about to shoot, Phoenix bows, announcing she has created a new drug. It was 5 times more addictive than the previous one. It's a drug she developed herself, so it would be difficult to be caught by inspections. April complains that it's drugs again. Buddha questions how many kilos had been made, and Phoenix replies that it was about 10. Then the monk wants to know about the distribution. The girl explains she connected all the routes between the red light districts of Korea, Japan, China, and all of Southeast Asia. She then begs for half a year, as that's all she needs to become a useful daughter to Lord Buddha. The monk replies that he was going to give her half a year, but since he lost so much because of her stunt, she has to prove herself. He'll give her 3 months. The girl breaks into a smile and agrees. At the hospital, Kyung-hee was completely out of it, spouting nonsense. Kyung-soo asks what's wrong with her, and his colleagues comment that she was going through withdrawal because her body was sensitive. The girl speaks strangely, and a colleague translates that she was asking Kyung-soo to wipe her mouth. He comments that he was surprised the young man came to see how they were, and the protagonist questions this. Since they kept talking about how they came to visit when he was in the hospital, he was here now, and they're even. Another colleague says he got a special promotion again, and Kyung-soo replies that he doesn't know about that yet, but if he was jealous, he should work hard. He was leaving now. They comment that Kyung-soo has changed a lot and sigh deeply, wondering what they were even doing. At the police station later, Hong-jun comments that there might be an informant within the police organization. Kyung-soo is surprised. The officer says he wanted to test the drugs Kyung-soo brought, so he sent them to the forensic lab, but they disappeared and someone managed to smuggle them out. He asks if Kyung-soo has any leads, but Kyung-soo says he knows nothing about police business. The drugs were his key evidence, so he'll bring them back when he goes to catch that damn woman. Therefore, he'll handle the internal side of the organization alone. He needs to hurry and find out about her subordinates. Jun replies that they were being interrogated. Kyung-soo asks when he's going to use the special team for the Hwaguksa investigation. Hong-jun says that actually, they were all already in the cemetery. Not a single one is left. Kyung-soo is silent for a few seconds, then complains that the bastard lied to him. Hong-jun says he couldn't trust him back then. Kyung-soo tells him not to move or he'll get hurt, but the superintendent asks him to wait. He asks why he doesn't form a new team, and Kyung-soo asks what he means by that. He says he'd need at least one small Mugunghwa to form his own team, which Hong-jun confirms. He has 2 Taik Mugunghwa, so he has the authority to let him do it. But Kyung-soo immediately refuses, saying he likes to work alone. Hong-jun points out that he had mentioned a team, but Kyung-soo retorts that he messes things up, and that's not what he meant. The superintendent general removes Kyung-soo's hand and calls him corporal. He warns him that the police is an agency, and there are limits to what one can do alone. It'll be easier with a team, he'll get more funding, and it makes making excuses easier. So, as his superior, he is ordering Corporal Kyung-soo to assemble a team. He can't create one himself, since too many eyes are watching, and there are too many risk factors. Kyung-soo repeats, "An order?" He says that if he asked politely instead of ordering, he would consider the request. With no dignity left, Hong-jun asks him to assemble his own team. Back at the hospital, his colleagues ask if he's going to form his own team. It was strange for a corporal to form a team, but Kyung-soo replies that he was ordered to. Gyeong-hee asks who the team members will be. Kyung-soo answers that it would obviously be them, because besides them, there's no one at the station with a lower rank than him. His colleague thanks him, saying he thought he had become useless after his head injury. Gyeong-hee continues to thank him while crying, and they say they'll work like slaves for him. They accepted a job thinking they'd be stuck in an office for the rest of their lives, and wonder if this is what a colleague is for. Kyung-soo asks what he means by that, since they still don't know their place. He doesn't need useful colleagues. He just needs obedient people who will follow his every command. They summarize, "So we're not your colleagues." Kyung-soo confirms, saying they are his slaves, people who must die if he says so, and must live if he commands it. So, if they understand, they must call him Master. Only then will he allow them to join the team. According to the report Hong-jun had shown him, one of them is named Hwang Hee-jun, 25 years old. He is well trained in boxing, kickboxing, taekwondo, and other martial arts. Looking at his record, he seems like a great candidate. However, he failed the written exam 4 times and got in last place. Hee-jun asks what he means by chief, since you need at least a small Mugunghwa for that. He's basically an idiot. The other one next to him is Lee Sung-yeon, also 25. He excels in martial arts involving grappling and ground fighting, like jiu-jitsu and judo, with excellent records. But on the day of the interview, he burst into tears like a crybaby. Now he's saying he doesn't understand what he means by master, because it sounds scary. Gyeong-hee complains that he was crying, and Kyung-soo thinks, last but not least, there was Jo Gyeong-hee, 25 years old. She has no training in any martial arts, placing last in the physical exams. The weakest officer on the police force, but she finished first on the written exams and also ranked first in the interview. This means she's very smart. She says she'll do anything the master wants as long as he puts her on the squad. The next day, on a mountain, the 3 of them were in training clothes. Kyung-soo stretches his foot on the ground. Hee-jun starts to call him friend, but quickly corrects himself to master. He asks why he called them out there on a weekend, and Kyung-soo tells them to start stretching, because they are police officers and he is a dangerous criminal. So they have 5 minutes to prepare before they all attack him at once and try to subdue him. Hee-jun asks if he's sure about a 3-on-1 fight. Seung-yeon calls out to his master and asks what happens if he gets hurt, but Kyung-soo just warns them that they have 4 minutes left. They will start in exactly 4 minutes. The 3 of them crouch down and start whispering. Gyeong-hee comments that the bastard has lost his mind. Seung-yeon complains that she didn't call him master, and the girl says it's not like he can hear her. But from a distance, Kyung-soo replies that he can, and she calls him Master. They go back to whispering. Heejin asks what they should do since they agreed to do whatever he ordered. Kyung-hee says Heejin will pretend to charge him head-on, and Sung-hyun should take him to the ground. The guy immediately complains, calling him a coward. Heejin asks if all he has to do is run straight at him. Kyung-hee says that since he trained in boxing, he needs to use his footwork to confuse him. Kyung-soo takes off his shirt and asks if they're ready to fight. The three of them are stunned by his physique. Kyung-soo announces that time is up and tells them to come at him. The girl tells Heejin to go, while he repeats, confuse the opponent with footwork. He approaches, saying this dozens of times. But when it's time to act, it looks like he's dancing. Kyung-soo asks why he suddenly started tap dancing. Kyung-hee mutters that he's a stupid idiot and that he needs to get closer, but they are shocked when they look up and see their friend flying away. Kyung-soo calls out to the others. He approaches them, asking if they're messing with him. Kyung-hee tells Lee Sung-hyun to advance, and the young man trembles a little. He then runs off, shouting that he can't do it. Kyung-soo appears at his side, saying he should never show his back, especially to a criminal. He then punches him in the face, calling him an idiot, knocking the man to the ground. Kyung-hee trembles in fear as Kyung-soo turns towards her. She asks him to wait as he gets closer. She shakes her head, asking if her master doesn't hit women. Kyung-soo replies that he doesn't hit women, but he does hit police officers. He then lands a knee to her chin. The girl complains about the blood. Kyung-soo says they're on another level, wondering how they expect to catch criminals like this. They are to rest for 10 minutes, and then they'll repeat this training 3 more times today. And if they don't want to get hurt, they better come at him with everything they've got. He orders them to answer, and the 3 of them agree with their master. At the police station, Hong-jun asks how the team building is going. Kyung-soo replies that they're all trash and wonders how the hell they became cops. But Hong asks him not to be too hard on them. Kyung-soo says they won't be going after normal criminals, but people like him. Anyway, he wants to know when the interrogation will be over. After all this time, he still hasn't gotten anything, and Hong complains that they're all staying silent. He was thinking of using some kind of truth serum, but Kyung-soo says it would never work on guys who use that stuff with the Phoenix. Anyway, it was his own fault for trusting a cop, so he'll take care of it. Hong-jun asks him not to make them suffer. Kyung-soo says, just what you'd expect from a country that takes human rights seriously, even for criminals. Hong-jun reminds him they are still police officers. Kyung-soo asks if, as long as he doesn't hurt them, he can do as he pleases. The superintendent agrees. Kyung-soo tells him to leave it to him, because he's got a great idea. In a dimly lit room, the criminals are resting at a table. Then someone enters through the door. The man says it's no use, he won't say anything. But Bi-kwang asks how Choi Sang-muk is doing, the huge one who wears floral blue clothes, the Phoenix's right-hand man. But he must be the new right-hand man, because Kim Dong-cheol was the right-hand man. The criminals are stunned. Bi-kwang adds that there's also that bitch who's always near the Phoenix. The criminal then asks who he is. The protagonist says it's been a while, and that he's Bi-kwang. Now they're going to have a little chat. The man asks what the hell he's talking about since Hyung Bi-kwang is dead. His colleague comments that he looks like the Hyung. Bi-kwang says it seems they've met before, because he recognizes those scars made by a high heel. He was beaten up by the Phoenix for getting caught smuggling drugs. His colleague asks if that's true, and the other man replies that Mr. Bi-kwang isn't dead. The protagonist explains that he was sent on a secret mission. He had to fake his own death and infiltrate the police to watch every move made by the high-ranking officials. But he heard that damn Phoenix lost the drugs and raided the police station, without success. The November Phoenix is Paulonia, wondering what that bitch is up to now. He cut the voice recorder's signal with the Orchid's jammers so they can talk. Her fate depends on their answer. If she's just lying in bed at the hideout, sucking her thumb after that huge screw-up, then on the Buddha's orders, he'll shorten her lifespan. The 2 men shout for Mr. Bi-kwang not to worry about the Phoenix. The Miss is currently manufacturing a new drug. The protagonist thinks for a moment, then smiles, saying they should get into the details. In his office, Hong-jun says it's unbelievable that a drug 5 times stronger than the last one exists. The protagonist mentions they plan to distribute it on the streets within 6 months. He tells him to check the report, as it has all the locations and distributors. Hong-jun asks if he found out where the Phoenix lives. Kyung-soo replies that not even the Buddha knows. Probably only her managers know her whereabouts. The superintendent decides they'll have to bring them in to get that information. The protagonist agrees, saying they'll need to raid their headquarters for that, although he doesn't think it'll be easy to get any information from them. Meanwhile, Phoenix was sitting at her base. Choi Sang-muk, the distribution manager, approaches and calls out to her, asking if 3 months isn't too short. She knows the saying that haste makes waste, and Kim Dong-cheol agrees. He heard that 2 of their men were captured by the police. It's too risky to keep rushing things. It would be better to ask Mr. Buddha for more time. Phoenix asks if they'll take responsibility if she gets reprimanded by him. A woman says of course she will. She'll take full responsibility. It's Sang-pi. She says the name is getting to Phoenix's head and wants to know what happened while she wasn't by her side. Phoenix says if she orders them to get things done in 3 months, then they will stick to that deadline. Choi Sang-muk is to connect all distribution routes and postpone the date, while Dong Cheol prepares things as quickly as possible. And she calls for Miss Yang P in private. As she smells the floral herbs, she's in bed, crying and hugging Sang-pi. The woman tells Miss Phoenix not to be afraid, because she's by her side. She will take care of everything for her as fast as she can. Elsewhere, Ga-young-hee tells the coach to go easy on them. Kyung-soo replies that they've been resting for 10 minutes, so they need to get up and go again. The girl asks if he isn't being too hard on them, since they weren't told they'd have to train like this. Kyung-soo repeats that they agreed to do whatever it takes. Kyung-hee complains that this is pure suffering. They joined his team to catch criminals, not to fight him. The protagonist asks if they really want to do this, and the 3 of them agree, so he tells them to go their own way. In a warehouse, the protagonist opens a door for the 3 of them. They come face to face with a group of thugs handling Phoenix stickers. Kyung-soo comments that it seems they're in the right place. One of the men asks what the hell this is. Kyung-hee calls out to her friend, and the protagonist asks what they're waiting for. There are thugs right in front of them, and they need to catch them quickly. Meanwhile, the man realizes they're cops. The protagonist kicks the trio towards them. They turn, calling him master, as the thug orders his subordinates to get rid of them. The protagonist closes the door and tells them to have fun, and so, the 3 of them complain about their current situation. Heejin wonders what they should do. He's fought one-on-one before, but this is his first time against multiple people. Seongyun says he wants to go home, but Ga-young-hee tells the 3 of them to calm down. It's not like they're going to die here, and even though Kyung-soo is a bastard, he wouldn't just abandon them. So they have to show him that they're cops too. Kyung-soo thinks to himself that this is just as he expected. She's smart enough to realize that in this situation, they need to stay calm. The girl tells the cops to go get them, and the protagonist thinks that her actions aren't helping at all. Heejun asks how, and the girl says he has to land the first punch. The man charges at one of the thugs. He screams as a fist connects with his face. Kyung-hee says he was supposed to land the first punch, not headbutt the opponent's fist. Heejun says that hurt, and the girl yells that of course it did. But the young man realizes it didn't hurt that much. Compared to Kyung-soo's punches, that thug hits like a kid. He wonders if it's because he got used to being hit by him, as he lands a punch in the thug's gut. He then tells everyone to charge. Seongyun comments that it really is a kid's punch compared to Kyung-soo's. One of the men circles Heejin with a bat. The young man notices too late, and Seongyun grits his teeth. He charges towards him and grabs him by the waist. Kyung-soo thinks they're pretty fired up now. Those 2 could be useful with a little more training. But he notices that Ga-young-hee is just providing moral support. The thug's boss yells that they're all useless. They were getting beaten up by 2 crappy cops. He then takes off his shirt, revealing tattoos, and comments that they're a disgrace. Heejin and Seongyun get scared of him, and the protagonist thinks it's over because they let fear get into their heads. If you let fear enter your mind, the thug lunges forward, his fist connecting with Seongyun's face, sending him flying. Kyung-soo completes the thought. The chance of failure increases. The thug runs towards Heejin, and the protagonist thinks they have a long way to go. The thug says his subordinates were beaten by these 2 morons, and that it's pathetic. But he notices the girl asking to surrender. Jung-hee was on her knees, repeating that she surrenders. She'll tell him everything she knows, so please don't hit her. Kyung-soo thinks that this damn girl is very clever, but then he notices something. She pulls a taser from her pocket and quickly moves it to his shoe. Then she hits the man and starts electrocuting him. The girl yells at him to die. He grits his teeth and prepares to kick the girl, calling her a bitch. Before he can strike the girl, Kyung-soo stops him by hitting the thug in the stomach. He loses consciousness, and the protagonist turns with an elbow strike to the neck. Kyung-hee is impressed. Kyung-soo says that for now they've seen it, just how useless they are. But now they need to grab the drugs from the table, because someone else will take care of the thugs. And it's going to be a pain in the ass. But for now, these 3 are nothing but dead weight, so they should head back. Later, elsewhere, Sang-muk stands before the thug. The man calls him Sir, and starts talking about the cops as the manager places his hands on his mouth. He easily tears the man's mouth open. A man tells manager Choi that there was something right there. Sang-muk notices something on the table. He trembles with fear upon seeing Bi Kwang's letter. In the police station, Hong Jun says that with this many drugs, they could become dealers themselves, so the information wasn't false. They can move forward with the plan. The protagonist asks if the ambush plans are finalized. Hong Jun says he's going to introduce one of the officers who will be part of the ambush. She's one of the few people he trusts there. He tells her to come in. He asks the protagonist to say hello to the person who will be participating in this operation, a member of the KNP, Superintendent Kim An-hyung. The protagonist calls her Sir, and Hong Jun introduces Senior Officer Kim Kyung-soo. The girl approaches, saying that a mere senior officer is sitting in the Superintendent General's room like it's his own office and must have lost his mind. The protagonist complains that his legs hurt, and Hong tries to stop him, saying it's fine and they should calm down to plan. She then tells the senior officer to stand up because she doesn't like rude people stepping on his lap. She repeats the order to get up, and the protagonist tells her to make him. Kim asks what's going on, and Kyung-soo says he doesn't want to get up. The superintendent should give it a try, while he comments that he doesn't see much difference with all this bullshit hierarchy. That girl asks what the bastard just said and says that's fine then, because she'll make him get up. The two stare each other down hostilely. Hong Jun calls out to Superintendent Kim An-young and tells her not to pick a fight with him. The girl quickly steps back, and the protagonist notices something different. She tries to close in with a kick, but then feints into a high kick. The protagonist dodges by throwing his body backward. He thinks that was a Brazilian kick. The KNP Seoul wasn't like the people at the precinct. They were on a different level. He dodges all of An-hyung's attacks. The woman calls him a bastard. She asks how he dares to dodge all her kicks, and if that's how he wants to play, she'll just grab him and drag him out of there. The protagonist thinks that she switched to a grapple in an instant, and is also quick on her feet, on a whole different level compared to Sung-yoon. He moves his fingers to strike her chin, thinking she's a valuable piece for his plan. The girl faints and falls into the protagonist's lap. Kyung-soo asks if she wasn't the one who said she'd drag him out of there and wants to know why she's lying down. She gets even angrier and lunges forward with a slap. The protagonist notes that this is to be expected from a KNP Seoul member. She has an incredible physique, dodging every attack. Hong Jun eats his chocolate bar, saying it's really good. After the fight ends, she announces that she will now explain the Phoenix Polonia operation. According to the report, on the last weekend of each month, the distribution managers gather for a meeting in the club's basement, which would be in 15 days. They're going to tackle this with two teams, one led by Superintendent Kim An-hyung and the other led by Kyung-soo. The girl asks how they can trust this information. Hong Jun says he got it through interrogation, and she tells him not to joke around because they didn't say anything when she interrogated them. Kyung-soo tells her to cut the crap, that he's the one who got the intel, and she tells him to shut his mouth, demanding to know why he's speaking so informally. She wouldn't believe it unless she heard it from their own mouths and is going to interrogate them again, but Hong Jun refuses, stating that unfortunately, another interrogation is impossible as they were found dead. An-hyung is shocked, and the protagonist asks why the security there is so bad. Hong Jun continues that they must be prepared because he'll see them both at the next meeting, and they are dismissed. The girl asks how they died. The Superintendent General tells the protagonist to stay behind for a moment. An-hyung asks what the hell was going on in that place. As she opens the door, she warns that her specialty is shooting, and he should prepare himself because she's coming after him with her gun. Kyung-soo mutters that she's completely nuts. Hong Jun gets the protagonist's attention. He shows him something that was found in the interrogation room where the two were found dead. Then he asks if that card means anything to him. The protagonist quickly identifies it as a crane. In the hideout, Phoenix holds Bi Kwang's card, trembling with fear. Sang-muk comments that it was found in a warehouse where the police ambush happened, and Dong Cheol asks if they should report it to Mr. Buddha, but Phoenix refuses. She says it can't be. Bi Kwang was dead. Besides, Buddha would just chew her out for talking nonsense, so they must proceed with the plan. If she can't redeem herself this time, she's going to die. She wonders why the cops have Bi Kwang's card, as it makes no sense, thinking that either way, she is going to die. She then screams, having an anxiety attack, and the managers order someone to bring Miss Sang P quickly. Incense smoke rises into the air, and the woman closes Phoenix's eyes. She calls her two subordinates, who ask what their lady needs. Phoenix just tells them to proceed with the plan. Dong Seol comments that this is very risky since the police know everything, and there are other concerns. But Phoenix calls for Miss Sang P, telling her to give them one too, because if they worry too much, things will go wrong. The woman says it will be as her lady wishes. They should come over and get one. Holding a paper of Polonia flowers, Phoenix says it was just refined and purified by Sang-pi, so it's fresh. The two use the drug. Dong Cheol comments that all his worries are disappearing, and Sang-mook says that now everything will go as it should, so they would continue with the plan. In the training area, Kyung-soo complains that this is no good. Wondering if the other two ran off, Kyung-hee comments that they were going to stop by the hospital on their way. The protagonist comments that they were weaklings, but that's actually for the best. Ga-young-hee suggests they can rest since she's the only one here, but the protagonist questions that, because until the others arrive, the two of them are going to fight one-on-one. This would be her special training, and the girl repeats his words. The protagonist comments that her body is crap. The girl says she has a decent body, but the protagonist replies that it's complete shit. She has no muscle mass, but has stamina, and her flexibility is like a statue's, with no specific traits for fighting. They're being sent on an operation soon, and she'll probably be the first to die. The girl asks what kind of operation it is. Kyung-soo thinks that at first, he wondered who would let a girl like her become a cop, but over time he came to a plausible explanation. He knew she was smart, but she's much brighter than he expected. From what he heard, she memorized every restaurant number in this area and was nicknamed the Human Delivery Service. Kyung-soo warns that if she doesn't want to die, the best thing to do is focus on her strengths and stop wasting time hiding her weaknesses. From now on, when she's training, she should think of a collapsible baton as a weapon. When folding it, think of it as a knife or a blunt weapon. He's going to be extra hard on her so that her body learns. So she must make sure to memorize this with that genius brain of hers. The girl asks what she's supposed to memorize. The protagonist says she'll find out soon enough, and the girl tells him to just say it. He tells her she'll just have to wait and see what happens. The day goes on, and later, Heejin and Seunghyun are shocked. They wonder what happened to the place. The girl says it was very intense, and they want to find out what they were doing. The protagonist asks if they really want to know, because they'll find out soon enough, and it's better not to worry. The two of them beg to live the rest of their lives without finding out. Time passed, and 15 days later, the night of the Phoenix Polonia operation arrived. Heejin comments that he just lived through 15 days of hell, and Seunghyun says he never wants to experience that again. Kyung-hee asks what kind of operation this is to be working with the KNP Soul. And Young asks what the hell is supposed to be in the forest and says if they don't find anything, she's going to kill the protagonist. A man up front calls for the captain, announcing they've arrived, as there's a tunnel guarded by two men in chicken heads. Kyung-hee asks what the hell is that, while An-young reacts and moves as far forward as she can. She moves her weapon quickly and strikes one of the chicken heads. Her colleague tries to pull something from his pocket, but he's hit in the neck by An-young's kick. All the squad members are shocked by her skill. The girl speaks into a radio, saying the two guards have been successfully taken down and they're starting the operation now. Kyung-soo says that's what you call an incredible physique and that they should go now. An-young tells them to stop, that they're to stay here and watch these two. The protagonist replies that she's stupid. The girl adds that in the first place, having the KNP Soul and some city cops working together is absurd. Kyung-hee tries to say they're not just some cops, but she laughs, saying that a damn city cop is talking back to her now. She let them tag along because of the superintendent general's order, but they should stay back from now on, as they'll only get in the way. Kyung-soo says they're on their own, and it's better because they won't have to work up a sweat. An-young comments that he's finally taking her orders, so now they'll move in, advancing with their squad. After dealing with the guards at the entrance, the protagonist assesses the situation, and after descending a long flight of stairs, An-young enters with her squad. They arrive at a place where loud music is playing. The people were like zombies, just swaying back and forth. An-young asks what the hell is going on. Dong Cheol sighs, saying he knew this would happen. Everything seemed completely wrong, so he grabs a radio. He makes an announcement to all current club members. Some unwanted guests have invaded the club, trying to ruin the party. If they manage to capture and bring them to him for each one, he'll provide a pass for unlimited treatment drugs for a month. With that, Phoenix's Operation Polonia had begun. An-young orders her people to raise their shields. The zombies advance towards the police. They block with their shields but are pushed back, wondering how they were so strong. Dong Cheol comments that they can't just shoot or they'll be in trouble. An-young yells for the firing squad to put on their masks. She throws a tear gas grenade. The girl yells for her squad to push them back, but a soldier calls out to the captain. An-young is surprised because the tear gas had no effect on them. Dong Cheol says it was foolish, as they're feeling a euphoria much stronger than pain. He orders his men to gather the drugs and take them to Miss Shang-pi through the back door, but someone suddenly enters the room, and An-young turns around. Kyung-soo was running, and she orders him back to his post. The protagonist leaps, using her head as a springboard to move toward Dong Cheol. He advances with a knife. A simple cut lands on Dong Cheol. He's surprised but manages to block it with the radio. The protagonist says he underestimated him. Unlike the boss, The subordinates must have received martial arts training. Down below, people scream as the police forcefully push them back. Dong Cheol remarks that they really think they can push back using just force, and the protagonist calls out to him. The manager turns but is quickly startled. The protagonist lunges forward at a thunderous speed and slashes his chest. An Young is shocked by his speed. Dong Cheol screams in pain, but the protagonist grabs him. Pinning him against the wall, he asks why he looked away and if it was because he seemed weak. It's not a fatal wound, so don't worry. They begged me not to take anyone's life if I could help it. Then he quickly moves his knife towards both of Dong Cheol's hands. Pinning them there, Dong Cheol feels excruciating pain. The protagonist says he won't kill him, and that he should stay right there on the wall. Dong Cheol asks who he is. Kyung-soo walks away, saying he doesn't know either. An Young kicks one of the zombies away and celebrates that they've made it. She reports that they're heading upstairs, but then gets startled. Kyung-soo's knife was still stuck in the wall, and Dong Cheol had patches holding his hands in place. Even though the patches stopped the bleeding, he didn't look well. An Young asks if he pulled his hands free. Dong Cheol demands to know who that bastard was and if he's part of KNP Soo. The girl takes off her mask, saying she wants that answer too, as Kyung-soo defeats everyone in his path. He tells Phoenix to get out, her subordinates all lying on the floor. An Young suggests Dong Cheol come down and surrender to get treatment, but he says there are too many cops there. He's never seen so many since he was in the special forces. An Young asks what he means. The man says it was nice to see them, his freshmen. He was Kim Dong-cheol from class 29X, and he wants to know their class. He points a gun at them. The girl orders everyone in her group to fire. Outside, the three of them are waiting. Heejun asks if Kyung-soo will be okay since he heard gunshots, and Sung-hyun adds that he asked them to wait. Kyung-hee asks why they were brought here just to be left behind and used to fill a hole, and they want to know why they went through that secret training. They've been through so much crap until they notice Sang-muk behind them, asking what those shitty cops were doing there. The three of them quickly back away at the sound of his voice. Kyung-hee quickly draws her taser. She fires at Sang-muk, but the man just puts up his hand to stop it. He then pulls the weapon from her and destroys it easily. The girl is impressed, and he says that it just tickles. But it's not even close to what Miss Phoenix is capable of. Firearms are a sensitive topic in Korea, with strict regulations on their use. The police are no exception. A case where an officer fires a real bullet might only be seen once a year. That's why police officers learn to use non-lethal weapons like tasers or rubber bullets. Dong Cheol tells them to shoot all they want, while sucking on a blue lollipop, because they can certainly do a lot of damage with rubber bullets. An officer asks what the table is made of, and An Young says it won't be enough. They must switch to live ammunition. She announces she is Kim An Young from class 30X, and the next round will be live fire. She tells him to stop resisting and surrender to treat his wounds, but Dong Cheol says he'd rather die. He'll just end up losing his life in a jail cell for the rest of his days, unable to use drugs anymore. An Young asks if he's choosing this over his life. Dong Cheol says that when he was active, his life was turned upside down after getting drugs on a mission. He scoured the area looking for better quality drugs, using his position to his advantage. But over time, his body started to become immune, and soon, none of the drugs satisfied him. But then, Phoenix appeared. She asked if he was Kim Dong Cheol, saying she'd heard his body had become tolerant to drugs. Then she handed him the lollipop, saying it was made with the purest things they have. She asked if he would like to have a lick. Dong Cheol touches his tongue to the lollipop and feels something incredible. He imagines himself in a state of absurd euphoria. This time, it was electrifying. Phoenix asks if it was good, adding that if he works for her, she can give him things even better than that. Dong Cheol says he'll do anything and everything. The girl makes him promise not to eat more than one a day, because he'll get sick if he does. The man complains that he's going to die anyway, so he no longer needs to keep that promise. He's lost too much blood and wants to know who that guy was because it's sad. It hurts to know he won't be able to eat any more of these lollipops, so he shoves them all in his mouth. An Young announces that the ammunition is ready and she'll start the countdown. Then she sees the barrel of Dong Cheol's gun stick out from behind the table. He fires, and the projectile ricochets off the wall. It heads towards the girl, who manages to dodge by ducking her head. She wonders if the bullets are ricocheting. Dong Cheol stands up and yells for his juniors not to just stand there. They need to make their senior's funeral totally extravagant. He fires again. Elsewhere, Kyung-soo dodges another shot. The other goons keep shooting at him, but Kyung-soo grabs one's wrist and strikes his hand to make him drop the gun. He pulls out his own gun and shoots the man in the leg. He continues to do the same to each of his enemies, putting the gun in one of their mouths and then elbowing him. A noise can be heard from Miss Sang P's room. Kyung-soo keeps walking towards it and finally opens the door. He comes face to face with the woman. She says she'd been wondering who was causing such a commotion and remarks that it was him, adding she'd heard about him from Miss Phoenix. She was going to pay him a visit herself, but it seems he arrived first. Kyung-soo asks if she received his gift. After all, she was the first-generation Phoenix. Song-P asks who the hell he is. The protagonist replies that he's heard that question a lot, but he's not tired of it. He's going to make her remember the good old days. Meanwhile, An-young keeps shooting at the table. The projectiles pierce through the structure, and some even hit Dong Cheol. The woman yells for them not to stop shooting. She notices something different as Dong Cheol throws the table. The officers are startled, and one of them raises his shield, redirecting the table away. An-young yells that at this rate he'll be dead soon. Dong Cheol charges, crouched low towards the squad. Holding the knife in his hand, one of them raises his shield. That man activates something under his helmet and takes the man's life. An-young is surprised to see this. Dong Cheol says he shouldn't have raised his shield so recklessly, asking if he thought he couldn't do anything just because he was about to die. The other soldiers scream, and Dong Cheol comments that now he's close to her. The girl is afraid of hitting her comrades if she shoots, and he points the gun at her. An-young quickly moves aside and kicks Dong Cheol away. The man is thrown back, and she starts to aim, firing repeatedly at Dong Cheol's chest. He falls to the ground, and An-young orders them to check on him. The soldier says he's lifeless, and the girl is surprised. Dong Cheol warns that he's not in hell yet, and throws a grenade at them. The girl recognizes the smoke grenade, and it explodes right after. One of the soldiers says he can't see and is immediately shot in the forehead. His friend asks what that was and where he was shooting from, while An-young thinks that if these idiots keep screaming like this, Dong Cheol says it's pathetic to panic just because one of them died, and that over time the equipment gets better, not the people. They should think of this as a lesson for their juniors. Even if the price of this lesson is their lives, he says, landing another shot. One of the soldiers trembles in fear. He spots a silhouette in the smoke and starts firing while screaming, but he realizes something is wrong. It was his colleague, who asks where he was shooting. Amidst the confusion in the smoke, An-young heard gunshots and the bodies of her colleagues falling right after. She wondered where he was shooting from, and where she should shoot. She wondered if she was going to die, thinking that in that moment, Kim An-young feared for her life. She looks at a figure in the smoke, wondering if it's friend or foe. Dong Cheol was holding the gun, and she realizes it's him, but she's startled to see the man standing still, doing nothing more. She approaches, wondering if he's dead. As the unpleasant feeling of dying seemed to slowly fade, reality began to set in. Seeing all the lifeless bodies behind and around her, the girl panics, denying the fact. She was feeling despair and fear for the first time in her life, and Kim An-young could only let out frightened whimpers. Then she hears a scream from afar and looks to the side. Kyung-hee yells that it's not working as Sang-muk runs after them. He complains that they're just running around like fucking rats, and the girl yells that it wasn't a secret training because nothing worked on him. Bi-kwang's training for his slaves was straightforward. He taught them all about the vital points of the human body. With blunt weapons, he taught them to aim for the solar plexus, the back of the head, the groin, and the joints. With a sharp-tipped weapon, he taught them to aim for places with the most blood vessels. He told them that if they encounter an enemy during missions, depending on the weapon they have, they should aim for the spots he showed them. Most of them will definitely go down with one strike to the right place, but it was clear there would be some exceptions, as they pointed their batons at Sang-muk's neck. The man comments that it doesn't even tickle him. Back in the present, they continue to scream and run. Ga-young-hee calls for the leader's help until she steps on a body. She asks what this is, and what the hell happened. Seung-yun feels like throwing up, and the girl asks what happened as he points. The police officers were all lifeless on the ground, and An-young was staring ahead in despair. Ga-young-hee asks if this is real, and Sang-muk is surprised. He says that Dong Cheol did well this time and did a good job cleaning up. Then he notices his friend sitting with his gun in hand, not moving. He gets scared and calls his name again. In another room, Kyung-soo calls out to the former Phoenix and asks where the current one is. Song-P asks who the hell he is, and the protagonist tells her to guess, because when it comes to things like this, she's no idiot and should already know. She replies that she's not sure, and her guess is that he's an interesting person saying interesting things, and that under other circumstances, she would have served him tea. She peels a patch from her shirt, and Kyung-soo lunges with his fist, saying this is the specialty of junkies like her. He throws the girl across the room. He knew she would try to talk while secretly applying a strengthening patch. The girl gets up, holding the patch. Kyung-soo lunges again with a kick, saying he would have just attacked during the time she wasted putting on that patch, and hits her arm. The girl's nose bleeds from the impact, and she moves a pill in her mouth. But Kyung-soo's hand darts out and grabs her mouth, saying that's also very obvious. It must be unpleasant to brush your teeth with a pill in your mouth all day, he says, pulling it from her mouth. Sang-pi moves her legs and locks him in an armbar. Kyung-soo comments that an attempt like this from a junkie without the help of drugs is the very definition of useless, and he slams her on the table. The girl groans slightly, and Kyung-soo tells her to give up the damned Phoenix's location. There's no good in protecting a coward like her who hides while her subordinates are fighting. Sang-pi says she's not a coward, and the protagonist agrees, saying in that case, she's just a junkie. If she doesn't tell him her location, the worst will happen, but his sentence is cut short by papers hitting his back. He turns around, surprised. Some children were glaring at him angrily. A girl shouts that he's a bad guy, and the protagonist is surprised. Sang-pi says the children are late this time. She told them to come as soon as they heard such a loud noise. One of the kids charges with a knife, yelling to stay away from Miss P, but the protagonist just dodges. He strikes the back of the child's neck to knock them out. The other two kids rush at the same speed, but the protagonist repeats his action once more, and the children fall to the ground. Sang-pi asks what he's going to do, because now, she's already high. Kyung-soo asks if that bitch gave them permission to mess with kids. Sang-pi asks, who knows? The protagonist replies that this won't work. He kicks the knife that was on the floor and catches it. Then he warns her that she'll have to die now that she's pissed him off. In the past, in a secluded place, Sang-pi was watching something. Bi Kwang was facing someone. Buddha approaches and asks what she thinks. This child would be the new Bi Kwang. The Phoenix says she doesn't know. He seems stronger than the first generation Bi Kwang, but it seems he's unable to finish the job. He's the same ambiguous Bi Kwang. Buddha replies that she's wrong, that with her brain melted by drugs, there's no way she could see it. He can easily finish the job. He's just choosing not to. Sang-pi asks if he's playing with someone classified as a month, and Buddha says that boy, when he first came here, all the children had been defeated by the first generation Bi Kwang, except for him. So he tells her to look again, so she can feel it. The countless wounds that boy has inflicted. It was beautiful, like the leaves of a willow tree. He wonders who else would be more suitable for the role of Bi Kwang than that boy. In the present, Sang-pi is cut by the knife several times and thinks, so this is it. She understands now. This man was definitely Bi Kwang, creating a vast number of cuts on her body as if they were willow leaves. After the battle, Sang-pi is on the floor, breathing, barely alive. The protagonist then steps on her chest. He says he'll ask one last time where the Phoenix is hiding, and Sang-pi asks if he'll kill her even if she tells him. The protagonist confirms he will, but he'll make it painless, and the girl smiles. The first generation Phoenix, now known as Sang-pi after leaving the position of the month of November, had her fate left in the hands of the new Phoenix by Buddha. When the old months are replaced by the new, a succession ceremony must be held. It is completed with the funeral of the old generation. However, the new Phoenix did not take the old one's life. Instead, she asked her why she tried to poison her with this, wondering if she knows how much poison she's consumed so far, and if she really thought I wouldn't notice, because even after I let her live, she still tried to take my life. He then asks if she hates her, but Sang-pi insists that's not the case at all. Crying, Phoenix just questions why everyone hates her so much. They tried to kill her for being weak, so she fought back and became one of the months. But now everyone hates her for using drugs. She, of all people, shouldn't feel that hatred, since she went through the same things. Then she stands up, saying they're going to do it. If she drinks this, Sang-pi has to like her. She then drinks it right in front of the woman, asking, how about that? With her eyes and mouth bleeding, she announces that she drank it all, and she did a good job this time, because from now on, Sang-pi will like her, asking for just one answer, while Sang-pi, who had lived selfishly just to survive, saw Phoenix cry in her arms for the first time in her life. She felt the feeling of love, so she asks how she could risk sending the first person she ever loved to hell. Bi Kwang keeps stepping on her and says that if this is her final answer, then she should go to hell, as he makes the final cut. The protagonist walks away, saying he'll have to ask the other bastards. In her last words, Sang-pi says that Miss Phoenix will come back. Besides, the children are all her responsibility, so he must please not take Miss Phoenix's life. This was her last wish for Bi Kwang. The protagonist thinks for a moment. Outside, Phoenix was riding a motorcycle towards the location. Bi Kwang says that will depend on what that damn woman does. Sang-muk yells for Dong Cheol, and Gyung-hee yells for the captain. The man runs towards his friend, and the girl tells the captain to pull herself together, slapping her face repeatedly, but with no success. Then she asks the two of them to try slapping her, but Hee-jun calls out to Gyun-hee. Sang-muk was using patches, filled with rage for having lost his friend. He then charges at them while the girl orders them to block him. Sang-muk swings his arm and throws them both away with an elbow strike. Then he goes after the girl, saying he's going to rip out every one of her organs. His hand gets closer, but blood splatters from nearby. It came from Sang-muk, who had been cut by Kyung-soo. The giant man groans in pain, and Kyung-hee calls out to her friend. Kyung-soo says he's not going to tear his colleagues apart, not on his watch. This girl's body still has some use. Then he looks at Dong Cheol, saying he hit his pressure point, but they were still destroyed. So he had underestimated Dong Cheol's abilities, until Sang-muk moves behind his back. The protagonist blocks the blow with a shield and says, "That must have hurt." Sang-muk complains about the pain in his hand, and the protagonist calls the three of them, telling them to take care of the kids who were passed out on the floor, because he's going to end this quickly, grabbing his firearm. Sang-muk uses two bodies as shields and tells him to shoot. The protagonist simply accepts the command and fires. The projectile pierces between the two bodies and hits Sang-muk directly in the shoulder. He groans in pain and lets go of the two as Kyung-soo approaches and says he's not going to take his life. They were all in hell, and he had to keep at least this one alive. Sang-muk is surprised and asks what that was. Then he charges forward, calling him a bastard. The protagonist shoots the man in the legs, telling the three to report to base that they're heading back, and they acknowledge the order. Kyung-soo thinks he thought it would be easy, but he was wrong and misjudged the situation. He had high expectations for them, but still, he had very high expectations for the girl, who was completely broken. Ga-young-hee asks the protagonist to tie him up, and Kyung-soo thinks she is a deity compared to the other three, and that he must have overestimated her abilities. Then he says the three of them should just give up, until he notices something to his side. Phoenix bursts into the place on her motorcycle. She steers her vehicle to hit the spot where the protagonist was. Kyung-soo readies his rifle and fires at her, but Phoenix dodges, hitting his shield with her rear tire. The protagonist is thrown far away by the impact. Then the girl parks her bike. Sang-muk calls out to his lady as she takes off her helmet. Phoenix had a different patch on her head, and Heejin recognizes her as the crazy girl from that day. The woman tells Choi Sang-muk to gather the others and follow her, because finding an escape route was harder than she expected. She adds that if she's going to get chewed out, she'd rather they stay alive. Sang-muk informs her that everyone else has already lost their lives, except for him. The girl is surprised to hear this, and the protagonist confirms the information, saying they were all lifeless, and remembering Dong Cheol and Sang-pi Phoenix gets angry and revs her motorcycle while pulling something from her jacket. She twirls her shurikens around her finger, saying she'll take the protagonist's life herself. Kyung-soo pretends to be surprised and says it's terrifying. In the past, Bi-kwang was resting with his injured arm when someone called out to him. Phoenix approaches and says it looks like he got chewed out for not obeying Lord Buddha, and asks if he was okay. Bi-kwang asks about her, and the girl says she was fine because it's her own fault for being so weak. Lord Buddha said he'll be in charge of evaluating them starting next month, and she's relieved to have him in command now. She was so jealous because he was promoted to be one of the months and even got a name. Besides, Bi-kwang sounds cool. She asks if he thinks she can get a name too, and Bi-kwang replies that her dreams are too big. Phoenix says the relationships between the months are horrible, and if she manages to become one of them, Bi-kwang must still be friendly with her. He has to promise. Back in the present, Phoenix throws the flowers at the protagonist. One of them hits his glove and then explodes. Kyung-soo thinks it's some kind of drug smoke. It's not particularly explosive, but it's significantly blocking his vision. His arm is still a bit stiff, but he can still move it. Then, Phoenix charges with her bike. The protagonist dodges by moving to the side, and the girl stops her motorcycle, asking how long he's going to keep running, until she notices something different. The protagonist had jumped towards the stairs. She says he must have thought she couldn't follow him up the stairs, and steers her bike that way. A room on the second floor was open, and the protagonist runs through it. The smoke trails into the area, and Phoenix's bike follows right after. She notices something, with all her subordinates on the floor. Kyung-soo tells her to come at him, but to be careful not to run over her own people. Phoenix dodges all the bodies on her bike with absurd skill. She then notices something. The protagonist was no longer there. Kyung-soo comments that she's really good at riding that thing, hanging from the rafters on the ceiling. He moves quickly and wraps his arms around her neck for a chokehold. Phoenix decides to accelerate her bike, and the protagonist notes that she was trying to throw him off, but she wasn't wearing a helmet to do it. The bike goes one way, and the two of them are thrown the other. He clutches his lower back, commenting that it's the second time he's fallen today. Phoenix gets up, asking who the hell he was. If it weren't for him, everything would have gone according to her plans. Kyung-soo says he's not sure when it started, but at some point she started blaming him for everything. She used to follow him around and do whatever he said when she was younger. The person she should be blaming isn't him. The girl yells at him not to talk about things he doesn't understand. Demanding to know who the hell he is, the protagonist answers, Bi-kwang. That was his name. The girl asks what that is, What the hell was he talking about? The protagonist calls out to Phoenix, telling her to surrender, as he had planned to take her life. She's in charge of the funds, so there might be transaction data left behind. They asked for her to be brought in alive. She must testify against all the crap she went through because of that bastard monk and provide all related evidence. In return, he would let her live. Phoenix laughs hysterically, saying that Bi Kwang had a secret disciple who was a cop. Kyung-soo says that she, of all people, knows he doesn't have any disciples, because she did a background check on him when she became one of the months. Or, he asks, did she think he wouldn't notice someone following him during his missions? There were only 2 people in Hwaguksa who hated that monk, and it was them. So you want to know why she didn't leave? The girl screams at him several times to shut up, because Bi Kwang was lifeless. Lord Buddha even showed her his body, and said she would be next if she didn't obey. Kyung-soo says it might be hard to believe. The girl cries, saying Bi Kwang wouldn't say that to his disciple, remembering the past. Because she hates Bi Kwang more than Lord Buddha, she sticks 2 more special patches on her face. Phoenix lunges at him, and the protagonist holds his ground. The girl opens her hands, and the protagonist strikes her abdomen, right where the Paulownia flowers were. That smoke fills the area, and the protagonist is surprised. The girl says this feels really good, and thinks it's amazing. Drugs were the best things in her life. Even with a headache afterward, a little stomachache, or even an injury, drugs could take care of anything. Even when she was in the worst situations, or just not feeling well, these drugs took care of everything. Just then, Phoenix's fist connects with the protagonist's face. This feeling was so good, she repeats it mentally. If you use drugs as medicine, you'll get better and heal. However, narcotics only make you delusional about what's happening in the real world. The girl asks how he's still standing, but reality remains unchanged. They only make things worse, as Phoenix starts to panic from the pain, wondering what the hell this was. She was winning. She needs more. The protagonist calls out to Phoenix, telling her she's a disgrace and should just give up. The girl thinks about that phrase. She gets up with the patches, asking who he thinks he is. Kyung-soo replies that he knows everything better than anyone, tossing the patches into the air. The girl screams for her drugs and tries to catch them in midair. The protagonist tells her to give up now and surrender, hitting her on the head. She needs to stop exposing her own disgrace. After a while, she asks him for the drugs. Kyung-soo replies that if she promises to surrender, he'll give her a dose. Phoenix tells him to just take her life, as she's more afraid of getting chewed out by Buddha than of dying. Kyung-soo replies that Sang-pi asked for a favor. She begged him not to take her life. Phoenix replies that if he were really Bi Kwang, he wouldn't have killed Sang-pi, but would have taken her information instead. The protagonist explains that she messed with the children. Judging by the girl's reaction, she didn't know. He asks if she understands why he took her life now. Phoenix says he's still just pretending to be Bi Kwang. Kyung-soo stands up, saying that if this is because she's afraid of that monk, she shouldn't worry, because he's gonna take that damn bastard's life. She's surprised and repeats, "You're going to kill Lord Buddha?" laughing at the thought. She then says that Lord Buddha managed to defeat even Bi Kwang, and he'll never be able to do the same. Kyung-soo explains that his original body was damaged and broken. The years of excessive training and abuse he endured as a child were a shortcut to becoming stronger, but his body was a consumable item, and the damage accumulated. And the final mission that sealed the deal on how his body broke was the mission to sweep the true religion. He was gravely injured after that mission, and she knows it. But this new body he got is different. It was trained diligently, allowing him to jump into action in the blink of an eye. Without any childhood abuse, this body was brand new. He got lucky. If he had taken that damn girl's body instead, he shudders just thinking about it. He then says that if he gets used to this body and trains more, that wretched monk will die by his hands. Phoenix is startled. She says he really is the Bi Kwang she knew. The protagonist confirms it and tells her to choose. Surrender or die right here. The girl thinks for a few seconds and makes her decision. Outside, Heejun asks if Kyung-soo will be okay. Kyung-hee says she'll gather everyone and get out of there since reinforcements will arrive in 30 minutes. But they should give first aid to Sangmuk before that, because he's losing a lot of blood. The man says that if they try to touch him, he'll kill everyone there. Kyung-hee replies that she'll only use her finger then. The man gets scared and asks her to take the patches from his pocket and put them all on him. The girl asks what kind of nonsense this is. Sangmuk, in agony, tells her to hurry up and do it. Kyung-hee replies that those are narcotics and he's an addict. It makes no sense to feed an addict's addiction. A voice from afar says that's right. The figures at the door stand waiting. Abril comments that drugs are for human trash, and his brother Julho agrees. Sangmuk is startled, and the girl asks who they are. Abril keeps repeating the man's name. He asks what happened to him to be in this state. He used to be huge like a tree trunk, but now he's nothing but dry twigs. They sent him to try and kill that damn drug addict, and Sangmuk trembles with fear. Phoenix realizes he's the one who supports the Black Lespedeza. She asks if he's here to kill her. The man is surprised by this. The girl says she has something much more interesting than taking his life. She asks if he wants to do it with her, showing the drugs. Abril concludes that falling in love with a woman like her left him in this deplorable state. He warned him several times about girls, but he didn't listen. Meanwhile, Julho calls out to his brother, saying there's nothing wrong with women, it's just that one drug addict. Then Abril complains that his Hyung is saying there's nothing wrong with them. Women are trash who can't even work out their arms. Julho replies that they're on another level when it comes to working out their legs. Sangmuk asks what brings the Lespedeza brothers here. Abril replies that it's an obvious question. They were there to kill that crazy woman and ask where she is. On the way from that place, the protagonist carries Phoenix on his back. She comments that this reminds her of the old days, and Bi Kwang tells her to stop talking and save her energy for her surrender. She asks if he remembers when they first met, when Buddha called over Bi Kwang, who was working, saying this is the child who passed the entrance exam. From now on, the two of them will be a unit, and he must teach her a few things while she practices. A few moments later, the girl falls to the ground with her sword. Bi Kwang had easily knocked her down. He asks how she passed the first rite of passage if she's this weak. The girl mentions something about bodies. She woke up trapped among them, and she was the only one alive. Bi Kwang replies that she isn't skilled enough to pass. The girl apologizes, saying she'll do whatever he says, but please don't tell Lord Buddha. Bi Kwang remains silent, watching the girl plead. Then he tells her to get up, because he won't tell anyone. Because when he passed the entrance exam, he promised himself he would keep his future partner alive and safe. The girl asks if he can promise, and holds out her pinky. Bi Kwang asks what that is. She replies that promises are made by linking pinkies, and that's what her mother told her. She asks if he can promise, and the protagonist accepts. In the events that followed, Buddha had extended a hand to the girl. Then, the agents poured those drugs into her mouth. She comments that she knew it was a promise he couldn't keep. She wonders how he could have survived in that environment while protecting her, so she should have blamed the one responsible, but instead, she just started blaming him more and more. The protagonist replies that she got it all wrong. He never broke his promise to keep her alive. He asks if she still doesn't know why she was the only one to survive that day. Phoenix asks what he means by that. Outside, Abril squeezes Sangmuk's arm, complaining that he's gotten skinny and it's a real shame. Jeonghee yells for her friends to stop him. They pick up the shields from the ground and charge, shouting, but they're startled when they see Julho swing his leg for a kick. Just by hitting the shield, he dents it and sends it flying. Then he tells them to stay put, because they're getting rid of the traitor. Abril says he used to love him so much. Sangmuk pulls a sticker from his pocket and tries to put it on himself. Lespedeza asks if he's really just doing drugs in the end, constantly disappointing them, but tells him to go ahead and stick it on, because they'll see where the path he's chosen leads. Sangmuk sticks on the sticker and says he's afraid of disappointing them. It was just Miss Phoenix. He then moves his fist toward Abril, but he's immediately hit by April's elbow, and his blood flies. He comments that this road he's decided to follow leads straight to the trash, so he wants to know whose turn it is now, until the brothers notice something and get excited, because now that they've taken another look, there was some delicious-looking trash for them to enjoy there, a macabre smile spreading under their masks. The four of them are surprised by this, and Gyeonghee asks about it being delicious, but Abril says it wasn't about her. He doesn't eat women for that reason. Men, on the other hand, have very good bodies, and you can't hide it with all those clothes on, pointing to Heejin, as he was his chosen one. He then asks what sports he plays, and the young man replies that he's been boxing for about 10 years. The girl gets angry, saying he was so stupid for answering. Abril claps his hands, saying that was excellent. He had an excellent body, and he liked that very much. He then points to Sung-yoon, and Gyeonghee tells him not to answer, asking why they were even talking to these psychopaths, and Abril tells the woman to stay out of it. Suddenly, July says to wait a second. That woman is incredible the closer you look. Saying that Anyong has a very well-trained body, he lunges toward her. He grabs her by the neck, while Gyeonghee hits him, telling him to let the girl go. Abril was breaking Heejin's arm, who says that he's too strong. July says they should then give thanks for the meal, opening his mouth wide to feed. Back in the hallway, Phoenix asks what he means by why she was the only one to survive that day. It was probably because she's immune to drugs, and Kyung-soo replies that after becoming her training partner, he realized something, because no matter how much she trained, in the end she would still inevitably lose her life to that bastard. He sighs deeply, and Bi Kwang asks if he was worried about that little girl. The protagonist snaps the staff in two and lunges at him. Bi Kwang easily catches it and tells him to calm down, because even though he's the next month after him, he was still just a child, and strikes his neck. He then says he'll tell him a way to prevent her from losing her life. He knows what kind of herbs are used to make Sayak, and if she takes small amounts of poison now and gradually increases the dose, she'll become immune. The protagonist asks what he wants with this. Bi Kwang replies that he's a smart kid, and it was a wise decision on his part to let him live that day. And so, he was able to get his hands on the list of poisonous herbs that were used, in exchange for a deal with the first-generation Bi Kwang. A few days later, he offers the girl a bowl of food. She celebrates, happy to have porridge to eat. But she notices a strange taste, and says it's a bit bitter. From then on, he started secretly putting it in her food, and after a few years, she was able to survive. They managed to meet again like this. Phoenix says it's a lie, but Bi Kwang asks if she remembers having a fever and rashes all over her body. She asks why he didn't tell her sooner, and the protagonist says they both would have gone to hell if she had said anything while under the influence. And that bastard thought she was born with a natural resistance, just like Sang-pi, so he forced her to become an addict. He, who had prepared to escape in secret without Hwaguksa knowing, went to where she was in an attempt to take her with him. He then calls out to Phoenix and tells her to wake up, because they have to go, before they find out. But she tells him to go, to the place that is paradise, and Bi Kwang thinks that he made a fatal error in judgment. Phoenix asks if he would take her for a walk, because she should stay there and do something even better, with the protagonist thinking that drugs are the worst substances in existence, and they changed who she was. He began to regret the choices he made as he watched her change more and more, wondering if he should have just let her die back then. Phoenix asks why he didn't escape alone. The protagonist replies that he doesn't know, until they hear a scream from afar. The protagonist wonders who was screaming, and Phoenix says Sangmuk might be the cause. She needs to hurry and tell him. So they go through the door and she tells Sangmuk to stop, but the screaming doesn't stop. April was eating Heejin's arm. Kyung-hee calls out Kyung-soo's name. Phoenix recognizes the brothers, and the protagonist says this isn't good. There were two brothers. The older one was born with a weaker lower body, and the younger one with a weaker upper body. Their physical defects were a weakness and a trauma in themselves, and that was the reason they were abandoned. They were confined to the hunger room, where children with physical disabilities were sent. The brothers couldn't accept that they had to die just for being born with a disability, and because of that, they promised to overcome their reality. They trained, they took lives, and they devoured, repeating this process hundreds of times until they slowly grew stronger. A few months later, Buddha opens the door to the hunger room. The brothers were able to stay alive through training. The older one was able to train his lower body and gained legs as sturdy as a wild boar's, and the younger one could train his upper body and develop shoulders as broad as a bird's. This is incredible because they were two Lesbadezas. The two brothers became April and July. They ask what the hell that junkie was doing there, being carried on a cop's back. Phoenix notices something. Sangmuk's body on the floor. She screams for her subordinate. April shouts that he's been waiting for this day for a long time and despises people who walk around acting tough just because they're one of the months, acting like they're something special even with a crappy body. And now, without Bi Kwang, if she dies, the heron of January, the cherry blossom of March, and the Eulalia mountain of August, only they will be left. July says they should spare the cherry blossom because she's cute, and the protagonist thinks that 1 month alone is a headache, but it had to be these two who stick together. He asks if Ga-young-hee called for backup, and she says they'll be there in 10 minutes. Kyung-soo takes Phoenix off his back, saying that's not much time. He can hold those guys off for 10 minutes, but his vision distorts for a second. He wonders what the hell is happening to his body. He saw the telltale veins of the drug on his body. The drug spread through his body from Phoenix's blood, causing this reaction. She started whining that she wouldn't go anywhere without a piggyback ride, having gotten way too soft. This wasn't good, and April jumps toward him. He tries to grab the protagonist but is surprised, because he had vanished before he could be hit. Kyung-soo ducks and tries a leg sweep, hitting April's shin. The man is unaffected and comments that he wouldn't be able to knock him down with such a weak blow. He then tries an attack with his fists, but grumbles when he realizes he had escaped once again. The protagonist comments that he seems to have gotten a bit bigger, but he's also gotten slower. April is surprised and asks if he knows him from somewhere. Kang thinks he's losing his strength. He then shouts for Phoenix to follow the other officers and get out of there, saying he'll be right behind them, also telling Jo Gyung-hee to take the kids and the other team members and leave. July repeats, "Get out of here," and stands in front of the entrance. The protagonist thinks he doesn't have much time, so he runs, thinking he needs to finish this quickly. April prepares a punch, saying he likes this. The protagonist dodges by dropping his body down and prepares to strike his stomach, but April changes the attack's trajectory into an elbow strike, and the protagonist dodges again. Phoenix thinks that he was matching Bi Kwang Appa. She had always been a burden to him, and grinds her teeth thinking about it, but she pulls something from her jacket, saying this was the end. April comments that the protagonist was getting slower, but he has a good body too. It was a shame. Since he'd been contaminated with drugs, he wouldn't devour him. It was time for him to say goodbye to his life. He moved his fist. However, a sound was heard in the room. April was surprised to see the Phoenix stopping his attack. She apologizes to her Appa, because she probably won't be able to turn around and confess. April tells this woman to get out of his way, but Phoenix said that this time, she would be the one to save him. There are a few stages to the Phoenix drugs. The tiers created by the previous Phoenix, P and Sang P. The updated version was Guang. The amount of satisfaction and physical enhancements one received depended on the stage's version. But of course, risks could occur after the effects wore off. The most potent version of them all was the Guang version, strong enough to make the Sang P version obsolete in just one variation. But there was a phase above Guang that not even the higher-ups knew about. Phoenix, who noticed her body was building a resistance to the Guang phases, decided to spend her time and effort refining the drug to an extremely high concentration. The products of her effort were named Phoenix Tears. She decided she would drink it when the Guang versions no longer had an effect on her, or when a more important moment in her life arose. And Phoenix was certain of one thing. If the Phoenix Tears, kept in a tempered glass vial, were drunk, the next place she would wake up would be in hell, holding onto April's fist. He is surprised and tells the girl to get her filthy hands off him, then throws his other fist. But the girl strikes his back, making April feel pain. He retreats, complaining about that damn woman, until he feels something different. His hand was feeling the effects of the drugs. April shouts that the damn junkie had used it on him. His clean body had been contaminated by it. Phoenix starts to whisper some things to her Appa. April asks what the hell she was saying and how she dared to ruin his clean body. The girl says that, just as she thought, he's a junkie too, since they have no effect on him. April tells her to take back what she said, claiming he was fine because of his strong mentality. He's natural. He lunges forward, punching her in the abdomen. Then he says he's going to take the life of this damn junkie. The Phoenix moves some of her blood and spits it out immediately after. It hits April's face, temporarily blinding him. She moves stealthily while April calls her a damn woman. The girl grabs his arm and holds him down using her legs and her arm. April calls her a damn junkie, and Phoenix shouts to the police officers, telling them to grab their colleagues and get the hell out of there. Seung-yoon asks why this person was suddenly helping, and Gyeonggi replies that it's not important right now. They have to get Kyung-soo, the captain, and the kids out of there, but Jul-ho tells them to stop. He says that no one is going anywhere. They tremble in fear, but Gyeonggi notices something, stepping on the patches and getting an idea right after. April screams at her to get off him and starts struggling on the floor. Julio asks if his brother needs help, and April tells him to get this bitch off him. His brother approaches but says he'll take the cops' lives first. He's then surprised because Gyeonggi had put a patch on his face and comments that it feels good. She asks about the cop who uses drugs, but she had lost her mind. Then the girl lunges forward and sticks the patch on Julho's thigh. He is surprised and asks what it is. He panics upon seeing it stuck to his thigh. He complains that it's disgusting and they should take it off, while Gyeonggi tells Lee Seong-hyun to get Kyung-soo and Hee-jun to get the kids. They both manage to grab their charges, so they decide to retreat, running out of there. Seong-hyun tells the protagonist to hang in there because the medics will arrive soon. The protagonist thinks he's losing consciousness and looks back. Phoenix was holding April in an armbar. She says goodbye to her Appa. Hulo yells for his little bro to help get this crap off him, and April yells for the idiot to take it off himself. April keeps squirming until he breaks free a little. He then lands a punch on the Phoenix's face, calling her a bitch. He strikes again in anger. He then gets up. Julho comments that now he's going to find that red-headed cop and take her life, but Phoenix's bombs are thrown, and she asks where they think they're going. The grenade hits the ground and she says the three of them will fight. They have unfinished business and are going to settle it once and for all. This is the end, so they will all lose their lives together. One day, on a rainy night, Bi Kwang came to her. He tells her he took a man's life for the first time, and the girl says she heard about it and that he had become one of the months. The protagonist comments that it seemed like he had lost something. He asks if she has ever taken a life before, and the girl denies it. Bi Kwang begs her not to change and holds out his pinky finger. The girl accepts it as a promise. From that day on, Bi Kwang, who who had become a month, successfully took on missions focused on eliminating killers like himself, but he failed missions that involved taking the lives of civilians and suffered at the hands of Mr. Buddha, but he was too skilled for Buddha to take his life. On the other hand, Phoenix became a month who turned countless people into addicts and dragged them into an endless den of despair. She felt no remorse for breaking her promise to her appa, nor did she think he had failed to keep his. But she was wrong about that. She had drugged and killed people in front of Bi Kwang and hated him, but she was wrong about that. April punches the girl's abdomen, and Julho grabs her head for a knee strike. She wonders why she had changed so much. But she remembers Kyung-soo saying that drugs were the reason she changed so much. If reincarnation exists, it is said that if you sinned in your last life, you will be reborn as an insect or cattle to cleanse your sins, and then return as a human. Bi Kwang held on to even the smallest shred of his humanity, and was reincarnated as a human to ultimately correct his sins. So in her next life, she wonders if she'll be an insect or cattle, or if she would be born into that hell once more, lying on the ground in front of the two brothers. April wonders if the drugs are wearing off since she doesn't look to be in good shape, and Julho says they beat her up too much. The girl repeats the word drugs and asks them for some. The two start laughing because she was begging for it even before she died, and it was truly disgusting. He asks if she'd like another hit before going to hell and picks up the patch from the floor. April tells her to take back what she said about them being addicts, and as a gift, he'll put one of these on her. Now she should talk about it. Phoenix asks if he's really going to give her drugs. She reaches out her hand, crying, but then she remembers the promise, where Bi Kwang cried and asked her not to change. When she dies, she will go sober, saying that the two brothers are just like her. Before she dies, she will apologize to the people she ruined, while April rips off her finger and hits her, saying he was natural, from the bottom of her heart, and repent, even if she can't be reincarnated like Bi Kwang. The girl says she's sorry and that she was wrong. Insect or cattle, she doesn't care. She doesn't need to be reborn as a human. She doesn't even need to be reborn, so please, never let me be born in that place again, she cries. April asks what the hell she's talking about as she cries, and then he takes the girl's life. He looks at his hands, full of veins, commenting that his whole body is dirty now, but they have to go as they have unfinished business. Julho asks if he plans to chase the cops in this state, since their backup was arriving. April asks who said he cared, that he'll just kill everyone. Julho replies that he's a little scared. They start arguing because they still have business with the orange-haired woman, but on the other hand, they don't know how many people are coming as backup. April tells him to forget it, that if he won't go with him, he'll go alone. Julio replies that he has no choice but to follow. But suddenly on the comms, Orquídea calls the Lespediza brothers, asking if they dealt with Phoenix. April says yes, and that they were leaving now. Orquídea tells them that backup is on the way to their location, and is climbing the mountain as they speak. If they check the club's warehouse, they'll find oil. They are to burn the drugs and the place down before escaping through the back. Those were Buddha's orders. The two grab the items and gather them together. They place the drugs on Phoenix's body, saying it's the most fitting funeral for a junkie. April says she wanted to bring the body and feed it to that peony's dog. July comments that she would be angry about him feeding her dog garbage. The brothers set the place on fire, commenting that it was fun to watch flames, but they should hurry so they don't get burned themselves. So this is the last goodbye to the junkie before she lost her life. At the hospital, Kyung-soo suddenly wakes up, startled. He looks through the window with a headache from the recent events. A small bird was resting on the tree beside him. The Phoenix's Polonia operation was complete. At the Buddhist temple, Buddha holds November's letter in his hand. He clenches it tightly right after. He calls for May Orchid, who was wearing a wire. From January to October, he must gather everyone because the Buddhist ceremony is about to begin. At the hospital, Kyung-hee goes crazy, mumbling incoherently. Kyung-soo watches from a distance and calls her crazy. Behind him, Hong-jun calls out to veteran Kyung-soo. He asks if his body is okay and if they can talk for a bit. In a waiting room, he asks how long he was out, and Hong replies that it was 2 days. The Phoenix had lost her life. Kyung-soo says he understands and that he should have saved her and extracted information, but she lost her life, and he seemed sad about it. Hong-jun mentions that while he was out, opinions arose that the police's use of live ammunition during the Phoenix's Polonia operation was excessive force. On the other hand, there are politicians arguing against this, saying it was the right decision to make. A public opinion battle has started because of it. Kyung-soo asks if they were saying this even about the soldiers who lost their lives, and Hong-jun says politicians always split into two sides. If side A has a circle, then side B has a triangle, and vice versa. If side B has a circle, there are many cases where side A will have a triangle. Kyung-soo says it's a pain in the ass, and Hong-jun says that finally, Superintendent Kim A-young, who participated, along with guards Hwang Hee-jun and Lee Seong-hyun, have said they want to quit being police officers. The protagonist asks about this in disbelief, and Hong Jun says he brought them back. Kyung-soo comments that those idiots are being annoying, and the girl replies that this was the summary of the important things. First, he needs to go somewhere with him, and they'll talk about the rest later. Kyung asks where. Hong Jun tells him it was the farewell ceremony for the special soldiers who lost their lives. Kyung-soo says he's never been to a funeral, and the man tells him to put on his uniform. But the protagonist tells him to wait because before that, he has to go somewhere and he'll be back quickly. At Hwaguksa, the Buddha statue marks the meeting. The months of the organization were gathered there. The heron of January did not attend the meeting. The plum birds of February comment that the heron didn't come again. Cherry Blossom comments that he must think they aren't busy and that she has a full schedule of things to catch up on, yet she still came. Black Lespedeza of April asks why she's pretending to be busy when she's not even married. May Orchid says he should muzzle him and asks if he wants her to use one. June Peony replies that it's okay. Her dogs don't bite. July, Lespedeza wonders if he should ask Cherry Blossom out on a date after the ceremony. Eulalia Mountain of August did not attend the meeting. September, Chrysanthemum asks when Buddha would arrive. October, Maple Leaf comments that it seems Shitnix had lost her life. Suddenly, the doors open and Buddha enters. He asks if everyone is gathered. October mentions that the heron and the mountain didn't come, and Buddha replies that the mountain was cleaning up Phoenix's traces. February asks about January, and Buddha says he's out of the question. April comments that it's because they are Kwangs, and Cherry Blossom says she's one too, and yet she was there. Buddha asks if everyone heard that the Phoenix lost her life, and February says that stupid woman did something worthy before she died. Cherry Blossom asks if they were there to choose the new November and December, but Buddha denies it, saying the reason he called them there was because one of them is going to assassinate the veteran Superintendent General Hong Jun. They question him about a police officer. Chrysanthemum says that if it's that kind of request, he can send one of the disciples instead of one of the months. Orchid agrees, as they are no longer the same religion of the past, and Buddha says that in the old days, he sent Bi Kwang to take Hong Jun's life. Chrysanthemum says Bi Kwang wouldn't take another person's life unless they were a murderer, and July says he wasn't qualified to be one. Buddha adds that this time was different because he came back beaten up. He said that this police officer is incredibly skilled. Peony asks how that idiot could be so strong, and July says he looked like trash in the photo. April says Bi Kwang must not be giving his all, and Orchid says his body was all bruised. Buddha can't believe it either, so it's better to be safe. Instead of taking his life, he made sure he wouldn't be able to track them anymore. However, this guy is tracking them again, and now they know that whether this guy is skilled or not, he must be dealt with. So he asks who will take this guy's life. At the funeral ceremony, Hong Jun feels a slight chill. The protagonist climbs a mountain in his training clothes. He thinks about how he was losing consciousness that day, but Phoenix's last words to him were the coordinates of a specific location. According to the coordinates, this was the place. He wonders what the hell is there, and if it's buried in the ground again, because there must be a ton of worms and fucking slugs. Digging in this place will take a long time, but a bird catches his attention. He turns towards a rock, and the little bird makes a movement. At the Hwaguksa temple, Orchid finds Buddha in his room. She says that it might be unwise to take the life of a police executive who has received so much public focus after the incident. Buddha replies that it will be fine, and in fact, it's even better. The public is full of idiots who rant and explode, so it's better to let them explode all at once and forget about it together. Not to mention, that guy needed to be eliminated at all costs. Orchid questions if he is truly such a big threat. Buddha explains that once, a guy in a Bi Kwang mask came to the temple. He was extremely skilled, and the two of them have the same aura. So there are two hypotheses about this. First, Bi Kwang trained someone in the police force to escape his surveillance. Second, Hong Jun formed a professional team to eliminate Hwaguksa. Orchid says Bi Kwang has been under heavy surveillance his entire life, so the first speculation isn't possible. Buddha adds that he has spent most of his life in Hwaguksa, and Orchid replies that Hong Jun's secret team interfered in the Phoenix case. The second theory is definitely more convincing, and in that case, Hong Jun might attack Bi Kwang alone. She asks if 1 month would really be enough. Buddha explains that Bi Kwang's condition was critical after the true religion operation, and 1 month should be enough. Orchid asks if he's going to take a break, but Buddha says no, he has to go somewhere first. then that month bids farewell to his master. He goes into a room with a picture of Hong Jun and comments that he is quite skilled. Maybe he should investigate this. Elsewhere, Kyung-soo taps his shoulder. He says there was nothing about him reading a eulogy. Hong replies that a Young isn't there, and he wrote everything, so he just needs to read it. But Kyung-soo tells him not to decide things on his own. He should at least give him a heads up next time, but Hong Jun calls the kid out. He says he's still his superior, and he can't treat him like that, but Kyung-soo replies that yes, he can. That's because the thought of crawling into that hole to save him makes his whole body itch. At the police officer's funeral, there was a stage. A woman up there announces that it is now time for the speech from Senior Officer Kyung-soo. He thinks that to pray for those who have passed, he really isn't the right person for the job. As he read the speech written by Hong Jun, he felt his remorse and sadness. He was genuinely unhappy about the passing of his fellow police officers. However, for him, instead of feeling sad reading the speech, finishing his speech, he'd made the man feel like shit. Kyung-soo thought the situation was terrible, but then someone calls his name. It's National Commissioner Nako, asking if he's the senior officer. He mentions that Kyung-soo was the one who first uncovered the drug case at the club, which he confirms. Nako says he'll be a great officer and hopes he does well in the future. But something about handling such a major case still bothers him. The superintendent should have reported directly to proceed, but the mission was successful anyway. He wonders if this should be considered luck or misfortune, given the loss of so many young officers. He asks Kyung-soo for his opinion. The protagonist wonders if this guy is bald. He tries to speak, but a crying mother interrupts them, crying out for her son. Kyung-soo thinks he now understands why he feels so awful. Maybe it's because if it were him, no one would be genuinely sad. Considering this, his new life isn't so different from an assassin's. A man says that he went on the mission with his son. Fortunately, some people made it out alive. His son was on his way to becoming an excellent officer, and Kyung-soo was a young man just like him. So please, he must live for his son and make his dream a reality. After all, he's someone's son too. They shake hands, and Kyung-soo says it would be his pleasure. As they walk away, Hong Jun says he handled that very well. The announcer states that was the speech by Officer Kyung-soo, and next up is High Priest Yu Hua, from the nation's intangible cultural heritage, Hwaguksa. Yu Hua simply says, Namu Amitabha, before beginning. We are people interconnected by divine grace, which is the definition of family in Buddhism. These young people received the country's grace in the form of their salaries. They contributed to these graves by giving their all to their duty as officers. Considering this, we can call everyone family. Mothers and fathers, do not grieve, for the officers behind you are your children. Young officers, do not fear, for the parents sitting before you are your parents. We are all one family. Kyung-soo thinks that he has always seen Buddha up close, more than anyone else. But this was the first time he had witnessed him outside of Hwaguksa, delving deep into the pain of others and tearing at their emotions, forcing them to trust him in the end. His speech sent a shiver down Bi Kwang's spine. Yu Hua says they will now have a minute of silence for prayer. At that moment, Bi Kwang made an oath that after exposing all of that scoundrel's iniquities, he would take his life. With that, they say their last goodbyes and the funeral concludes. Some people ask Buddha how they are supposed to live now. Kyung-soo watches this from a distance until Nako calls him over. He says it was good to meet him and looks forward to his future activities, and Kyung-soo thanks him. Nako says he would offer him a meal, but the official word is bad. He tells him that as he's leaving, he should at least get a coffee from the vending machine, handing him a coin. Bi Kwang accepts, and Nako tells him to take care. The protagonist looks at the 501 crane coin. Back in Hong Jun's office, he asks if he found the Phoenix's hideout, and Kyung-soo confirms. He lifted a stone, and there it was, with a descending door. Hong Jun remarks that the stone must have been quite unique for him to have discovered it so easily, and asks what was inside. Kyung-soo replies that it was a diary written by the Phoenix and information about the members, but it wasn't very detailed, just a little more than what they already know. Hong Jun asks when he can see it, and Kyung-soo replies that he will try to bring it by tomorrow. Instead, he needs to discuss something more important today. Hong Jun asks what that could be. Kyung-soo says that from now on, he needs to move into his house. Hong Jun replies that he couldn't even think about it. He can't live with him in the same house, and he doesn't want to. Kyung-soo pulls something from his pocket and asks if he still doesn't want to. He shows a gold bar, surprising Hong Jun. The protagonist says it was in the Phoenix's hideout and looked like a slush fund. There are 30 more of them, and he should think of it as rent. Hong Jun still tries to refuse the money, saying he doesn't live alone. His daughter lives with him too. Kyung-soo says that in that case, he needs to live with him even more. He may have escaped the murder thanks to his lies so far. Hong Jun asks what the hell he lied about. Kyung-soo says that since he was responsible for the Phoenix case operation, he doubts he can avoid the fallout now. Hong Jun says he and his family could be in danger, and Kyung-soo adds that they might attack his daughter as well. The superintendent says he will clear a room for him. Kyung-soo asks if he really doesn't want the gold, but Hong-jun tells him to hold on to it for him. Back at the hospital, Young-hee asks if the three of them got out, but she says not to worry. She won't give up even if it costs her her life. Kyung-soo says he expected her to be discharged. The girl explains that no matter how strong you are, in the end, it's a matter of mental strength. The protagonist thinks she's not wrong. Kyung-soo says that's obvious and she doesn't need to worry, but she should exercise when she gets out. Kyung-hee asks if there was any mention of a promotion. The protagonist explains that it was too early for a 2-rank promotion for him, so the idea was rejected. Senior officer Young and he were excluded, but he heard that all the other officers will be promoted. Young-hee asks if that means the two of them are friends now. So now there are 3 hibiscus heads, and him too. But Kyung-soo replies that she forgot one thing. She was excluded from the promotion candidates. The protagonist says he can't stand her, but she won't be promoted because she used drugs while on duty. The girl says she had no choice, and Kyung-soo adds that she also had no choice but to look for drugs in the hospital, and she'll be disciplined for it. Young-hee replies that disciplinary action would be terrible, and the protagonist keeps talking. He says his damn slave was entertaining fantasies about being his friend, and the girl trembles with fear. The protagonist says he will deal with her after she gets out of there. Young-hee lets out a scream that can be heard throughout the hospital. Outside, the protagonist comments that he doesn't need to worry about her. He just needs to beat up those 2 guys and bring them there. That just leaves Young. He knocks on her apartment door. The girl trembles with fear but opens the door, asking who it is. The protagonist peeks his head in and she startles, backing away. Kyung-soo tells her to open the door immediately. Young asks why he's there, and he tells her to open the door so they can talk. She asks if he's going to call the police and why doesn't he just go ahead and get lost. But Kyung-soo asks why he would do that. He continues to knock on the door for her to open it, and the girl begs him to stop. She thinks this psycho is going to end up breaking down the door. Later, Kyung-soo summarizes that she wants to quit the police force and lock herself at home. She didn't even go to her colleague's funeral. Kim Ah-young, 29, was the youngest superintendent, known as the cream of the crop, and didn't know the meaning of failure. Hong-jun says he doesn't doubt her ability, but this mission is very dangerous, and the information isn't precise. But he thinks one of their opponents is someone considered one of the top agents of the KNP and was part of Commander Byun Jang-wook's special forces. This might sound strange, but she must proceed with the mission alongside Superintendent Kyung-soo. That was his order. Before going against those orders, back at home, An-hyung blames herself for being too arrogant, but the protagonist grabs her by the shirt, telling her to follow him. Ah-young asks where they are going, repeating the question with a louder voice. At a cemetery, the protagonist says they're here. The girl talks about her clothes, wondering what she should do and what to say. How could she possibly apologize to them? But the man asks if she is the captain in charge of the mission. The girl trembles in fear, but the man tells her to please live with their children in mind and be careful so that something like this doesn't happen again. An-hyung starts to cry. She falls to the ground, apologizing, saying she's so sorry. It was all her fault. All because of her. But the family embraces and welcomes the girl anyway. The protagonist watches from a distance and tells her to think carefully about which path to choose, because that path will be the one where she can apologize to her colleagues. Later, in a coffee shop, he says they don't have time and must summarize everything in 3 sentences. The 2 of them are a bit confused by this. They ask if Kyung-soo won't listen to their problems and how they can possibly summarize them in 3 sentences. But the protagonist replies that he can't stand talking to men. Hee-jun says he had a friend he could never beat in a fight, but that friend became a criminal, so he became a cop to catch him. Seong-hyun explains that he was bullied for being shy, so he learned jujitsu and became a cop to catch bad guys. Kyung-soo slams the table, asking why. Since they both have clear goals, they shouldn't quit being cops. Seong-hyun says he saw it too, that they can't do anything and are trash for not being helpful. The protagonist thinks it's self-hatred. An-young is self-confident, so she'll be fine. But these guys are the most annoying type of people. He tells them that if they think about quitting one more time, he'll beat them until they shut up and get back in line. They shouldn't waste energy on useless things, but Seong-hyun protests he was just seeking advice. And just like that, the 3 of them returned to the police force. Hwang Hee-jun and Seong-hyun were promoted to superintendents, and to work on their weaknesses, they continued to train with the protagonist. Thus began their special training during missions. And finally, Kim An-young met a man who hated her. He mentions that the bastard Dong Cheol was still alive. It was the former security force commander of KNP-22, Byun Jang-wook, who questions why she came to see him. In Hong-jun's office, the protagonist hands over the materials, saying he should summarize the data from the Phoenix's investigations. The ones Phoenix didn't get along with were March's Cherry Blossom, April's Black Lespedeza, and July's Lespedeza. April and July, known as the Lespedeza brothers, were being paid by Hwaguksa, but after a certain point, the money stopped. March, September, and October were also in the group that wasn't receiving funds. However, in the brothers' case, the reason was that they were operating some kind of business that has yet to be identified. When they don't have missions, they train, but sometimes they go to an external gym. They consider themselves naturally jacked, but they definitely use steroids, and the younger one for sure. Hongjun says this is good information and that he will investigate companies opened in the last 3 months and records of steroid use. Next was March's Cherry Blossom, who doesn't receive money from Hwaguksa but gives it to them instead. The payment order to her direct superior is Phoenix, Maple Leaf, and then Cherry Blossom, which is why Phoenix was so anxious. Hongjun looks at the photos, asking why they are all female celebrities. The protagonist asks if he knows them, and Hongjun says it's impossible not to. He's a huge fan of all of them. It would be weird not to know them. Kyung-soo says that one of these 3 is the Cherry Blossom. The superintendent is surprised and says it's impossible, but the protagonist explains that this is written from what Phoenix investigated. If you look at the information, her relationship with Phoenix isn't good, but she often received or requested drugs that weren't for personal use. A month ago, there was a drug incident in the entertainment world, and that narcotic was one of the new drugs Phoenix gave to Cherry Blossom. It's assumed that the Cherry Blossom is in the industry. Hongjun says, so? The bald monk's Hwaguksa? He wants to know what his motivation would be. The protagonist replies that the asshole's motivation was, it was when he was named Bi Kwang. Buddha asks if he knows what the most important thing in human life is. The protagonist answers no. Then the monk replies that it was fear. Humans live to overcome fear. To overcome the fear of starvation, humans work. Out of loneliness, they began to make friends. But when faced with the fear of losing their lives, no human can win. Everyone looks for a god at that moment. Who knows? In such a chaotic world where fear continues to infect society, and people have begun to lose all hope in life, they are all facing the fear of death. Maybe he will become a god. December's Bi Kwang, along with the other months, will become the nation's fear. The protagonist says that's what he said, and that's the goal of that damned monk. Hongjun remarks that he wants to be a god, a rather absurd goal, but he has a question. He wants to know why the months are loyal to Buddha. Bi Kwang replies that apart from a few he mentioned, most of the months have absolute loyalty to the damned Buddha. The reason is that most of them were raised as assassins by Buddha from a young age and experienced the fear of hell or of losing their lives. However, the rewards for becoming a monk were very sweet, like a divine gift. He also experienced it and knows what it's like. Since Buddha is a god to the months, he has already achieved half of his goal just with that. Hongjun says that he managed to survive the temptation. The protagonist replies that he made a deal. The superintendent asks about it, and Kyung-soo says that, in short, to continue enjoying these sweets, the months are completely devoted to him, and the result for those who aren't loyal is right in front of him, so he should just look at him and see what happened. He never rebelled directly, but 5 years ago, one of the months did. He must have heard of the sect of truth, and Hongjun confirms it. The protagonist explains that the religious leader of that sect was the first Maple Leaf. The current leader of the sect is probably the second Maple Leaf. After creating the sect of truth, the first Maple Leaf wanted to oppose the 12 months and created executives with the concept of 12 disciples, but they lost in a short time. The first Maple Leaf took those who were left and fled to the Philippines. He questions why Bi Kwang did that, since he was also against the damned monk, but the protagonist replies that he made a promise, that if he completed this task, he would live a normal human life. But the Maple Leaf tells him he actually believed that. Then he makes a prophecy for him. He will never be able to live a normal life. Bi Kwang took the first Maple Leaf's life. Hongjun says the current leader is probably the first one's successor, but he had said he took his life too. The protagonist denies this, explaining that you could consider him the Maple Leaf, but he wasn't the same person. He has very strange aspects, and even when they had group tasks, someone else always came. What was strange was that although they all had different ages, genders, and voices, all their actions, personalities, and ways of speaking were the same. Anyway, he has already handed over all the materials Phoenix gave him, so he's leaving now, and the next target will be the Cherry Blossom, since she is definitely one of the 3. Hongjun understands, and the protagonist gets a bit suspicious. On the way home, he asks why someone of such high rank was driving such an old car and says he should get a new one. But Hongjun explains that his wife, who passed away 3 years ago, had bought that car for his birthday 15 years ago. Kyung-soo says he must not have been very loved by his wife if he's still keeping this old clunker, but Hongjun tells him to get out of his car. He then adds that his wife was also a police officer. The protagonist asks if she lost her life in combat, but Hongjun says that 3 years ago, a person with a mental illness randomly took her life. Bi Kwang is sorry to hear that, but the superintendent explains that the sick person was a believer of the sect of truth, which is why he found it strange to hear it's related to Hwaguksa, so that's why he was so worked up when he said they should catch the Cherry Blossom, and that they should go after the maple leaf first. Hongjun says it's okay, and they have no information on them regarding the cherry blossom. Maybe he and his wife are cops, but his daughter wants to be one too, and the protagonist says she will have a quiet life. Hongjun says he wouldn't want his daughter to be a cop and will be living with her to convince her otherwise. The protagonist asks if he can knock some sense into her, but Hong says he still has a long way to go before having a normal life. At another house, the protagonist questions the age of the old door, and Hong tells him to hurry up and get inside. He explains that he can't treat him carelessly in front of his daughter, and the protagonist agrees. The girl asks if he has arrived, saying she was just studying at the library, so that must be the person who will be living with them. Hong Jun says it will only be for a short time. The girl says hello to the protagonist, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. She calls him Appa, while a speechless Kyung-soo says she looks nothing like her father. The protagonist looks at the photo, saying she looks like her mother, and Hong replies that it'll take an eternity to live life as a human. He prepared a room for him on the second floor, so he should go up and sleep. He's going to bed first, and the girl wishes her father good night. The two start looking at each other, and Kyung-soo turns away, saying she should rest. But the girl holds his hand, asking if she can come to his room later. She has something to ask, and the protagonist is confused. Later in his room, he repeats her question about what he did to become a police officer. The girl confirms, as she also wants to be a police officer in the future. Kyung-soo says he lost his life and became a cop, but she's confused, questioning if he trained so hard he died. The protagonist thinks that he doesn't have much information about this body's previous owner. His parents committed a crime when he was young, and the boy grew up in an orphanage. Nothing has changed, despite knowing something. He tells her not to ask about police stuff, but the girl asks why, saying she can be trusted. Kyung-soo explains that Hong didn't want her to become one. The girl says she hates her father, and the protagonist says he wasn't supposed to tell her that. It's her life, but he's still interfering. The protagonist asks why she doesn't come with him to training tomorrow since it's the weekend. Just once would be fine. The girl thanks her appa, and Kyung-soo thinks she'll give up after seeing hell. At training the next day, the three of them question what's going on. The protagonist tells them to say hello to his special guest who will be training with them, and the girl says hello. Jong-hee asks if she's a student and if she was kidnapped, but she says she'll introduce herself. She's Hong Yeon, a high school senior, and she wants to become a police officer just like them, so she came to watch the training. Jong-hee asks if she wants help with her studies, but Yeon says she's number one in everything. Kyung-soo tells them to stop the chit-chat because they're starting the training. Heejin throws a punch, but the protagonist dodges it immediately, landing an elbow strike to his chest. Seong-hyun moves in to grab him, wrapping his arms around his waist, but Kyung-soo grabs him back and throws him into the air. Yeon questions why they're suddenly fighting, but the protagonist answers that this is the training, a well-planned ambush, so obviously the two of them planned it. That only leaves Ga Young-hee. He asks why she isn't attacking, and she says she has sore muscles from going to the gym, so she surrenders, and the protagonist tells her not to just order the guys around, but to attack together. He hits her several times. Then he tells Hong Yeon to go ahead and attack him too, since she came here to train. He won't let her get hurt, so she shouldn't worry and just come at him. And if she won't, he lunges forward and strikes her in the abdomen, warning her that he'll attack first. He thinks that if he does this, she'll give up. Joining the police means getting hurt a lot more, but he's surprised when the girl catches his fist. Most people would be knocked out after a hit to the liver region, but she seems fine. So he says that this time it's Hwang Hee-jun versus Seong-hyun, and Gyung-hee versus Yeon. They'll form pairs to train. Yeon questions fighting her unni, but Gyung-hee just laughs, saying that even if she's a student, she won't go easy on her. Until the protagonist reveals she's the superintendent general's daughter. Gyung-hee gets easily beaten because of this. On the way back home, Hong-yeon says her body feels like it's going to break. The protagonist says it's her first time, but she held up well. She seemed very alive during the training, and will definitely become a good police officer. The girl thanks him for saying that. They enter the house, and Hong Jun is there with coffee in hand, looking confused. He asks why they're coming home together, but the protagonist says it was a coincidence. Hong warns his daughter not to get close to this guy because he's trouble. Kyung-soo replies that the superintendent has no social skills. Yeon says he's not bad, he's actually nice, blushing as she says it. Hong is surprised but quickly turns to the protagonist, irritated. He tells him to get out of the house, and Kyung-soo says he didn't do anything. Yeon asks him not to do that to his guest. Meanwhile, on the other side of the door, some people are talking and watching from a distance. The protagonist notices them. Outside, some assassins are waiting for the protagonist. Bi-kwang says he was expecting the Lespedeza brothers, but they sent the maple leaf instead. The three of them ask how he knows who they are. Bi-kwang replies that no one else would send so many people, and that Hong Jun will love this, since they conducted the maple leaf's capture. The assassins run towards him. One moves a knife quickly, but Bi-kwang just waits, then lands an elbow strike on him. The other two assassins keep advancing, but the protagonist grabs both of their heads and smashes them together. One of the assassins leaps with a knife but is met with a kick. He's thrown far away while the others groan on the ground. The protagonist thinks that these guys aren't trained assassins. The way they hold their knives is strange, and they're complete amateurs. One of them gets up saying his mind is blank and asks what happened. They look around, wondering where they are. Later, Hongjun summarizes that they don't remember why they came there, and Bi-kwang says it's the first time he's seen this. The men ask to leave, saying they're going to sue him. Hongjun says they attacked first, but the men claim they don't remember anything. Bi-kwang replies that after examining their belongings, he found their IDs and family photos that didn't look fake. Hongjun says it's the same thing that happened to his wife. Elsewhere, October tells someone to look at the maple leaf. From now on, she will be at peace. The pain and fear she received will disappear, and only peace will remain. The reason she no longer feels pain is because she admires someone. When the maple flower stops, she will slowly look away. Now he will ask a question. He asks the girl who he is to her. She replies that he is the beautiful maple flower that saved her. October kneels and says he is the one who will make her beautiful. He takes off his mask, but the girl is frightened by his scar. She immediately recoils from it. She realizes what she's done, and October gets angry because she wasn't hypnotized from the start. The woman says that's not it, that he's so beautiful she was just shocked. But October moves his maple flower and cuts her. The woman falls to the floor in agony. Maple Flower picks up his mask, asking how many times he's failed lately. This damn woman was someone who had been hypnotized for a long time. He liked her looks too. What a waste. Meanwhile, a red-haired girl says there's still a little left of what they received. If he liked her, he could have just used the drug. Maple Flower replies that they need to use it sparingly until a new phoenix is named. A blonde woman says he's failed a lot recently, including this week where 20 people lost their lives, and they are enough for him. Maple Flower asks if Yellow Leaf is jealous because having more leaves is more beautiful. The girl tells him to go easy on them when the hypnosis doesn't work well, as it's hard to bring people there. But Maple Flower says, "You can't change people." He identifies with that saying, "You can't change people, you can only replace them." If he alters them without much conviction, it only causes problems. That's why they need to be changed from scratch, exactly like those two. By the way, he asks where the men they sent after that police officer are. Yellow Leaf says they failed. October says he must report this to the Buddha. Orchid warns that the Maple Leaf's report has arrived. Hongjun seems to be a very skilled person. He was worried about something and wants to ask the monk, but Buddha tells him to think ahead. Orchid says that as soon as the mission he personally commissioned is completed, the hierarchy among the months is changing. He wonders if the maple leaf will grow stronger in the hierarchy, become arrogant, and end up like the first maple leaf. The Lespedeza brothers accepted the mission. So wouldn't they be a better choice since they only care about the bodies? Buddha replies that he never gave the mission only to the maple leaf. This mission includes October's maple leaf, and another 3 months. Orchid is surprised and asks if that wouldn't be enough, but Buddha says the plan has changed. It was fine, as it's a necessary investment. To be honest, I have an interesting plan. Elsewhere, Nako calls for Superintendent Hongjun, telling him he can take on the mission to eliminate the Sect of Truth, as he would provide the necessary information. Hongjun asks if he hadn't told them not to get involved in this. Nako says the superintendent was attacked again. After analyzing the matter, the Sect of Truth appears to be involved, and it's the same kind of incident that happened to his wife. What he said before doesn't apply to cults. He is aware of their methods, and based on his information, the Sect of Truth is actively spreading its propaganda. This is linked to the recent disappearances of women, and he wants him to look into it, asking if he will accept the mission. Kyung-soo says they should do it. Hongjun explains that he hasn't decided yet, but the protagonist questions his hesitation. They took his wife's life and attacked him, so they could easily target Maple Leaf next. The superintendent replies that he shouldn't take jobs with personal feelings involved, and they still don't have enough information. If it were the Lespedeza brothers or Cherry Blossom, groups they have more information on, it would be easier. He then notices the protagonist has vanished. Sighing alone in his office, he doesn't understand a thing. The trio of officers says their mission is to capture cultists and asks what kind of pseudo-religion this is. Kyung-soo explains that, according to their intel, they're most active in this region, and they're going to use someone as bait. Kyung-hee mentions that there are several cults, and it would take forever to find and attract the Sect of Truth. Sung-hyun says they need to find them quickly. Each cult has its own designated area, which is why they don't clash with one another. He adds that he's fallen for their tricks several times because he seems naive. There's a subway station nearby, so they can just walk down the main street since most of them operate around that part of the city. Heejin offers to be the bait since he falls for this kind of thing easily, but Kyung-hee says they only go for pretty girls. The three wonder if they know any pretty girls. even suggesting they should dress Seong-hyun up as one. Kyung-hee tries to remind them that she's right there. The three fall silent for a few seconds. Then they suggest they could use the general superintendent's daughter as bait, but agree that would be insane. The girl tells them to just wait and see, because she's going to show them what she's capable of. Arriving a while later, she asks what those bastards think now. Her hair is longer and she looks much prettier. She tells them not to fall in love. Heejin asks how her hair got longer, and Kyung-hee explains they're just hair extensions. Kyung-soo says that if she keeps her mouth shut, it might just work, adding that it wasn't a compliment. Seong-hyun announces that she will now walk around by herself. The cultists go crazy for girls who are alone. A couple appears, telling her she's very beautiful. Gyeong-hee thinks to herself that it actually worked, wondering just how many cultists there are since she barely walked at all. The girl thanks them, and the couple says they aren't a cult or anything like that. They're just students. They say they've been keeping an eye on her and think she's achieved something excellent in her current job. So if it's okay, they'd like to talk for a bit. The girl thinks to herself that this is exactly what Seong-hyun said would happen. If she listens to them, they'll invite her to a cafe or restaurant, and when they do, she should go along. When they get there, they'll claim they don't have any money and ask if she can pay for them. The girl is supposed to do just that. That way, they'll think she's an idiot. After talking a little more, they ask what she thinks. Kyung-hee replies that they're right, all while thinking they've been spouting nonsense for half an hour. They then tell her she should come with them to pray, and afterward, they'll take her home. Luring her in is easier than she imagined. From that moment on, she's a prize for these crooks. The girl accepts, thinking it's all going according to plan, but she wonders why they're going to such a remote part of the city. The couple tells her to open the door, saying this is it. They tell her to come inside, and she thanks them. But she's shocked when she sees a green-haired woman with several kneeling hostages in the living room.